proved I didn't cheat. Let's look. I'm proving I have not cheated at all. No, cheats are not activated. I just got the Blitz powder and decided I didn't want to stream it. But I wanted to stream this part. I'm gonna get that guy, the cleric, into his spot, and then I can finally not have a dead cleric.
As a mom of 5 rambunctious boys, I'm no stranger to being a terrible mother. As the mom of 5 rambunctious boys, I'm no stranger to out-of-control teenage blowjob parties. As a mom of 5 rambunctious boys, I'm no stranger to casually suggesting a threesome. Winner.
Hey guys, Jamie over here. I'm showing some very special people how to make a classic carbonara. Come check it out.
A classic carbonara.
Welcome to your wildest cravings come true.
Why do I like saying that word so much? A classic carbonara.
It's only $5. Savor this moment.
You don't have another brewing stand anymore.
Right,
Why are you angry?
Yeah.
You should be a nitwit, technically.
No, black and white version.
Oh, different card game here.
Poker.
That's it.
Yeah.
Welcome to poker, everyone. In poker, loving you is easy, cause you're blank.
You have to do like the song. Loving you is easy cause you're...
Oh. Loving you is easy cause you're a terrified fat child who won't come out of the bushes.
The Christmas #1.
Loving you is easy cause you're whining like a little bitch. Loving you is easy cause you're inserting a messenger into my anus. Wow, all of these could be #1s.
It could be.
Like, having something inserted in my anus. I'd love you if you did that. Whining like a little bitch. That has to be a fact.
Yes, I knew it. Really?
What? You can't reach his table?
Insert something into my anus. Yeah.
He can reach his table. You're just being a bitch.
Here we go.
You can reach your table.
Here we go. Alright, I got it.
But you have to, I'll just kill you.
All my fat children over
I
here.
can definitely get another
Once and for all.
Alright.
cleric. That's
this is
the
getting
easy part.
demonetized.
I'm not cleric, the bitch. The
Basic
bitch
human
guy.
decency, yeah, that could definitely do it. Becoming president of the
Um,
United States, that definitely didn't do it, but to be the manager. Getting shot by the police. Yikes. Do your worst, Brian. Yes! 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 Oh my god. You fucking Disney Channel. Disney Channel motherfuckers. You know, he was a smart man. He was a smart man. Fucking YouTube has changed, man. I spent my whole life working toward blank, only to have it ruined by blank. I was gonna tell Brian that that's a decent one as well.
I really want to die.
Like, really
Are
quiet.
you not using this one?
I gotta throw away mine. Mine is throw it.
I spent my whole life working towards political correctness, only to have it ruined by child abuse. Alright, I spent my whole life working toward assassinating the president, only to have it ruined by strong female characters. I spent my whole life working toward Chelsea
Fuck you. Actually be good villagers. You're not... It's not impossible to be a good villager without being super annoying.
Yep. Yeah, it was right.
I'm like, what's the actual
I had so many options there. Call the law offices of Goldstein and Goldstein because no one should have to tolerate blank in the workplace. Here we go. Bunch of Brockwitz this round after that laugh. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he has something about like Hitler. No. He knows my weakness. Nothing makes me laugh more than the Führer. I tell you. Wunderbar. The best humor. Call the law offices of Goldstein and Goldstein because no one should have to tolerate a snapping turtle biting the tip of your penis in the workplace. No one should have to tolerate soft, kissy missionary sex in the workplace. No one should have to tolerate soup that is too hot in the workplace. Yeah, that shit's disgusting. Yeah. Sorry about that. No one should tolerate that in the workplace or even in their home. That's disgusting.
Channel 5's new reality show featuring 8 washed-up celebrities living with blank.
Done goofed, Brian. I done goofed.
Channel 5 Five's new reality show feature 8 washed-up celebrities living with Viagra. Okay. Oh, wow. Channel 5's new reality show feature 8 washed-up celebrities living with cute boys. Dang. Such as Hollywood, then. Yeah, that one sounds like a show.
Wait, you didn't read the last one?
No, because didn't need to, man.
Wow, this game's awesome. Having so much fun getting picked all the time. It would have been great if Robocop was there. Not nobody would be like, oh, Robocop.
I just see Robocop and go, hey, guys, how you doing? Robocop, how you doing? No, fuck off.
Rocket you. Before Blink, all we had was Blink.
That's not good. Mine's a throwaway.
Before permanent orgasm face disorder. Oh, yeah. Boring vaginal sex.
Oh.
Vaginal sex. I don't know why I said vagina, by the way.
Vaginal.
It's pronounced vaginal. Before this month's mass shooting, all we had was some bloody peace and quiet. Yes! 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 Yes!
Dang.
Really?
This game.
Yes. Really? Yes. Really? Really? That's always Brian's response when I when I went around. I felt like a horrible person for using those cards. Yeah, you should.
Goddamn kids with their AK-47s. God, I want some peace and quiet right here.
You kick that. Old McDonald has E-I-E-I-O. Choose wisely.
No! No! I fucked up! I fucked up!
Can't wait to see this.
I had the perfect card!
Old McDonald has a huge big balls head full of jizz. Old McDonald has ISIS. E-I-E-I-O. Old McDonald has chemical weapons. E-I-E-I. It has to be this one. I'm sorry. It has to be. Old McDonald has huge big balls of jizz. E-I-E-I-O. We come there and the jizz there. Here we come there. Everywhere. Come.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna
Welcome to Senor Frog.
go.
Would you like to try our signature cocktail, Blank on the Beach? Maybe you have to do this with
Yes, you know that, right?
a Latino accent. Welcome to Senor Frogs, where you try a signature cocktail, smoking crack, for instance, on the beach. Welcome to Senor Frogs. Would you like to try a signature cocktail, boogers on the beach? Would you like to try a signature cocktail, bubble butt, bubble boy? The way you said it with the accent was amazing. I couldn't believe he stole so much with the with the baby boys.
Having problems with blank? Try blank. Evan, we have 0 points. Evan, give some applause. Fuck.
I know.
Oh, we're really that unfunny.
Oh no! No, he didn't. Oh, I did it again! Want me to just give it over? Wait, I can't let Brian get it. Why?
Just play fucking cards. Just play some cards, Evan. It's alright. Don't matter. Pick an anyway. Just like some stupid card that makes no sense and I laugh at it. Pick Robocop. Having problems with the passage of time? Try having an awesome time drinking and driving. Wow. That's great. Actually, I like that one a lot, actually. Having problems with turning 32? Try kale.
It's an H humor joke.
Yeah, not picking it. Having
That was mine.
problems with...
That was mine.
Oh, okay, Evan. I might pick it then. Having problems with full frontal nudity? Try showing all the boys my pussy.
I don't think I'm driving one.
The suspense, boys.
It's killing me.
Suspense.
Imagine you editing.
Oh.
Comment section knows. Yes!
I need some more
Yes!
children. Come
Yes! Oh my god.
We want
I know
beats,
his
beats,
humor.
beats,
It's
beats,
pathetic.
beats, 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 beats. Do you need beats?
New
Or do you
Femiclear
need
for genital
fun?
herpes symptoms at CVS in the personal intimacy aisle.
Make some freaking children already.
Doorbell that can scare package feet away. With a whistle.
It doesn't work anymore because you made it a commercial.
I don't remember which fucking year. My uncle calls me up and he asks me, hey, you need a job? I'm like, nah, I already got a job. He's like, too bad. I got 2 jobs. And that second job, he became my summer job where I worked at my uncle's concession stand. I had 3 roles there. I was a busboy, a food runner, and a dishwasher. You would probably put that all under busboy, but it makes me feel more important if I had 3 roles. But aside from those 3 roles, sometimes they had me do some other stuff like serving coffee. I don't know much about coffee. I'm 15 years old at the time. The only time I ever drank coffee is like after a barbecue when they bring out the coffee, and my grandma's like, "You want coffee?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" So I bring some coffee, and everybody's like, "Look, oh my God, you're drinking coffee? That's so crazy. You're too young to drink coffee. You can't be drinking that." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm drinking it. I'm drinking the coffee." And they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're drinking coffee. You're so crazy. I can't believe it. Look, he's drinking coffee, but he shouldn't because he's too young. He's so silly. What a silly little boy. I can't believe he's drinking coffee." So I didn't know the first fucking thing when it came to coffee, but it didn't matter. They told me that I gotta pour coffee if I need to, and I did just that. So the first customer comes, he wants a dark coffee. I know how to do that. My dad likes his coffee dark. I put coffee, I put some milk, bada bing, bada boom. Next thing you know, here's some coffee to consume. Next one is a light coffee. I put some coffee, I put some milk, light coffee. Likes his coffee dark. I put coffee, I put some milk, bada bing, bada boom. Next thing you know, here's some coffee to consume. Next one is a light coffee. I put some coffee, I put some milk, light coffee. There you fucking go. Third customer comes in, and she has a very specific order. She said that she wants her coffee very, 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 very light. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that, I guess. I make her coffee. It seems pretty light, and I give it to her, and she's like, "Nah, this ain't it. I want it lighter." So I make it lighter, and she says, "Nah, this is still not it. It's not light enough. Even lighter." I make it even lighter, and I give it to her, and now she's angry. She's very angry. Her face is red. She's full of rage, and in that state of rage, what this woman does, I can't believe what she did. This woman comes into the kitchen. She opens the door that blocks the customers from the employees, that little mini door that only people who work in the place are allowed to use. She used it. She used it. She used it. I didn't even know that was even allowed. I didn't think that was even legal, to be honest. And I'm like, "What do you think this door is for? So you can just come inside?" "No, it's for you to stay the fuck over there." But this woman, she violated the code. She violated all that the mini door stood for. And all I could do was just watch her in pure shock as she poured her coffee and then walked away. I didn't even know what to say to her at that point. Not only did she open up the mini door, but she did my job in front of me, and then she walked away like it was nothing. And I couldn't believe the fucking balls on this woman. I was flabbergasted at what happened, but I did learn how she likes her coffee, which was she wanted a cup filled with milk, and then just a droplet, not even a drop, just a mere droplet of coffee into her cup. She basically just drank milk, and that's fucking stupid. And after that experience, I never poured coffee again. My coffee days were over, but I did still pour soda. You need a Coke, you need a Sprite, a Dr. Pepper. I will pour the greatest fucking cup of Dr. Pepper you've ever had in your life. But not coffee. Fuck the coffee. I'm done with that. The coffee life is behind me. All because that stupid fucking bitch. Guys, before this video starts, I just want to let you know about my... Guys, we got brand new merch. We got this brand new Eat Your Cereal limited edition design. It's only going to be around for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, it's gone. So get it while it's still here. It's this amazing design that I made. I wrote these letters, Eat Your Cereal. I wrote it by hand. I wrote it with my hand. This was handcrafted. Then I added the cereal bird. And then I put a cereal bowl that I also handcrafted. I don't know. I was messing around with designs, and I came up with this, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I think you might like it too. It's only going to be around until October 8th. After that, it's gone. It's not coming back. You're never getting it again. So make sure you go in the link in the description or go to talontlist.shop and pick up one of these bad boys today. Get that shirt, and let's start the video. Thank you. Every year in elementary school, we would have field day. We'd walk into class, and the principal would get on the loudspeaker and be like, "Hey kids, we got field day," and we'd all go to field day. That's how it worked. It was pretty simple. So we would get to the field that we would do the field day at, but before we did the field day, we had a walkathon. Every kid in the school, before partaking in the fun and activities of field day, had to walk a mile. Why did we have to do that? I don't know, because it was like for cancer or something, but I don't understand why we gotta walk. I asked my teacher, why we gotta walk a mile, and she's like, "'Cause it's for cancer." And I'm like, "Yeah, I understand that. That's great. It's awesome. But why do we have to walk? What are my legs doing for cancer? Raising money? Why don't you just give them the money? Are you really out here in hospitals? Like, sorry, little Jimmy, you were gonna pay for cancer never participated in one, but the egg spoon race is probably one of the best competitive sports out there. You can't just go out there and walk across with a spoon in your hand and an egg on the spoon like it's nothing. No, this sport is for the most hardcore athletes. You need balance, composure, endurance, speed, intelligence. You need everything to be a winner at this. Because if that egg falls off your spoon, then it's over and they fucking kill you. Well, I mean, they don't kill you, but if you lose, you don't get an ice pop. And that's just as bad as them killing you. It's fucked up. But some kids out here in the egg spoon races took that shit way too serious. Motherfuckers out here sprinting with their egg. One kid was fucking walking backwards with their egg. One dude was out here with 2 spoons like it was fucking Jesus Christ. That kid was basically God. I don't know how he did that shit, but the egg spoon race was very competitive, and I sucked at it. So after I dropped my egg and they assassinated me, I went over to the bushes with my friends, which sounds weird, but it's not weird. We just chilled by the bushes and talked about Pokemon some more. But after we finished chilling by the bushes, not in a weird way, it was time to finally go home. Field day was over. It was time to go back to school. The cancer kids got their money. I proved to everyone that Blastoise is the superior Pokemon, and Danny got a Nobel Peace Prize for holding 2 spoons with an egg. It was a great day and nothing could go wrong. But something did go wrong. Something that I still hold in my heart with pain and anger to this day. As we were leaving field day, everyone, of course, was very tired. It was a long day and we were exhausted from jumping in potato sacks and helping cancer children, all that stuff. But as we were walking in line back to the school, I was in the front of the line, and out of nowhere, one of my friends comes up behind me and yells out, "Boo." And since I was tired and I didn't expect that shit, that was the scariest fucking boo I've ever heard in my life. So in retaliation, I yelled out, "What the hell?" And when I said that, bro, let me tell you, my teacher was fucking pissed. Apparently in 5th grade, saying the word hell is basically the same as saying. And my teacher wasn't happy about me saying hell at all. So she says to me, "Get to the back of the line." And of course, me not wanting to get to the back of the line, I tried to lie and I said no. I said bell. I said what the bell. But she didn't buy that shit for a second because no one says what the bell. Even the Wiggles say what the hell. And they got a good image to keep up. So I ended up having to go to the back of the line, which now that I think about it, doesn't even matter. Like, who cares if you're in the back of the line? But I guess I was having my Green Rosa Parks moment. But yeah, I got sent to the back of the line, and that ruined my field day because that one kid was scared the shit out of me and yelled out,
The energy to get you started, and amino acids to help you recover when you're through. Started strong.
So back when I was in high school, I got locked in the park, and it was an interesting experience. Me and my friends were out at the school's park one day playing soccer, having a great old time, kicking around the old soccer ball. And you know, back then in high school, I was actually quite the soccer star. I was never on the school's team or anything. I wasn't good enough for that, but I could kick the ball into a net and get it in sometimes. And I could even do a rainbow sometimes too, and not a lot of people could do that. When we were playing I was never on the school's team or anything. I wasn't good enough for that, but I could kick the ball into a net and get it in sometimes. And I could even do a rainbow sometimes too, and not a lot of people could do that. We were playing soccer, and as we were playing, I noticed from the corner of my eye that the janitor, or whatever this guy does, I don't really know who he was, but this guy was standing by the field door, the same door that allows us to enter and exit the park, because the park's fenced in, and you gotta go through a door to use it. So I see him standing there at the door, and I don't really think anything of it. Maybe he's just checking the door to make sure it works, make sure it opens and closes, add some oil or whatever you do to a door. Big door is good, you know, just make sure it doesn't creak, because the last thing I want when I'm playing soccer on a nice day is to have a creaky door. You can't be having that going on. So this dude's over there chilling by the door doing his thing. But as I'm looking over at him, what this man decides to actually do is not to oil the door or something like that. No. What this man does is he closes this door, he locks it, and then he leaves. So now we're stuck in the park, and this fucking door's locked, right? There's no getting out, there's no exiting, you're not getting out of here. So me and my friends are looking at each other like, alright, well, it seems like we're locked inside this park. What the fuck are we gonna do now? And there's really only one way to escape a locked, fenced-in field, and that way is to climb the fence out of the park. Now the thing is, climbing fences are usually pretty simple. You go up to the fence, you climb it, you go down on the other side. It's easy, it's pretty simple. It's really simple, actually. But the thing is, that's how you climb an average-sized fence that's like a little taller than you. And this wasn't an average-sized fence. This was a big fucking fence, like a prison fence, basically. And that's not an easy fence to climb at all. So we started thinking, well, what do we do? Do we climb the fence, or do we look for an alternative way to climb the fence that would make it easier? So we started looking for shit that could help us go over the fence more efficiently. Maybe we could stand on a bucket. Maybe we could jump. Maybe we could stand on a bench. Or maybe we could use the bench, prop it up against the fence, and run up the fucking bench and jump off the other side of the fence to escape. And that's what we decided to do. So we all head over to the bench and pick up this giant fucking thing made out of steel. Somehow, we were able to lay it on top of the fence. I have no clue how he did that. And after a bit of messing with it, it was finally time to check if this thing worked. Now, first, obviously, we had to check if this thing was fucking sturdy. Because if it wasn't sturdy, then we would all die. And that's not good. That's not good at all. Because if you die, it's over. Me playing soccer again, unless you play in heaven, but it's not the same playing in heaven because you probably got clouds and shit. And you gotta buy new cleats for the cloud. It's just a big hassle. You don't want to die when it comes to this. So finally, one brave person decides, you know what? I'll fucking do it. And he walks over to the bottom of the bench and slowly starts making his way up this thing. But the thing is that this bench is so fucking unstable that he can't just climb it. It's way too dangerous. So what do you do when you're walking up an unstable bench that's propped up against the fence and it's too difficult? That's right, you sprint up it. So now people are taking turns running up this fucking thing, trying to see if they can maybe jump off it, reach the other side, but it's pretty scary. Like, you know that carnival game where you gotta climb that shaky ladder and ring the bell so you get a prize? Imagine that, but it's steep as fuck. It's like 50 feet high, and the ground below you is concrete. Now, when you think of it like that, it doesn't seem like that much fun. So people are trying to run up this thing, but eventually everyone decided, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't try to die. Let's think of another way to escape. And after looking around at the empty field for a while, we decided, you know what? We're just gonna have to climb this fence. Now, luckily, where the door for the fence is, it has more bars across the bottom, so it's easier to get your foot going in the beginning. But once you start getting towards the top, there's no more footholds. Like, you gotta swing your leg over the top of the fence if you want to get over this thing. So it was still pretty scary, but finally, after about like 5 minutes of trying to climb the fence, we all got to the top. But the only thing scarier than climbing up a fence is going down, because now you're at the top of this thing and you're looking down like you're on a plane and you're just frozen. And most of the people who were there with me climbed down a bit and then they jumped off the fence because they were smart and they didn't think they were an American Ninja Warrior like me, who decided to just jump straight down from the top. And I think I almost broke every bone in my legs, but I survived, and that's what matters. And we made it out safely. One thing I realized as we were leaving after finally having escaped is I don't think we ever put that fucking bench back. So to whoever that janitor was that locked the door, that's why there was a giant steel bench laying against the top of a giant ass fence, because you locked the door on us when that was our only exit. So I don't know how you got that thing down without it falling on you and crushing your body. But either way, I hope you learned your lesson not to lock the fucking door on us. Go fuck yourself. Fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are locking the park door with people playing? The fucking locksmith? You think you walk around this field with your fucking keys like you're the master locksmith? Get the fuck out of here. Go fuck yourself. Next time you lock the park door again, I'm putting that steel bench through your fucking window.
I finally found my true calling.
I'm gonna have to go pee. I really hope nothing blows up like a creeper
There's
comes
two
and
types of
goes,
teachers on the first day of school. The first type of teacher, everybody sits down and they say, welcome to the class. I hope you had a great summer, because now it's time to work. Everybody gets a pop quiz. What? But we didn't learn anything yet. Yeah, well then you clearly weren't paying attention during the summer then, huh? Yeah, because we didn't have school during the summer. You know what? You feel. Get the fuck out of my class. Get the fuck out of my class right now. The second type of teacher likes to take things a little bit slower, and as much as I hate the first type of teacher, the second type of teacher kind of sucks too. They'll be like, all right, class, welcome back to your first day of school. I hope you all had a fabulous summer. And before we start working, let's take it easy. It's the first day after all. Why don't we start by going around the room and tell each other our names and one cool thing about us, huh? Doesn't that sound fun? Awesome. All right. Now, why don't you start? What's your name and one cool thing about you? Hi, my name's Dan. And one cool thing about me is that I like to ride my skateboard sometimes. Whoa, skateboarding? That's so cool. I didn't realize we had the next Tony Hawk in this class. Did you guys know that we had the best skateboarder in the entire world in this classroom? I bet you weren't expecting that. Can do the legendary Ollie all by himself. That's amazing. Isn't that amazing, class? You're so good at skateboarding, Dan. You shouldn't even be in school. You should go out there and follow your dreams, Dan. Dan, leave. Go and follow your dreams. But I can't go. I gotta learn stuff in school. Follow your dreams, Dan. Follow your dreams. That's amazing, class. The next Tony Hawk was right in this classroom. Wow, that was amazing. That kid's gonna do great things in life. Amazing. Alright, who's next? Now, as shitty as saying a fun fact about yourself is, the only question worse than that is when a teacher asks what we did over the summer. Because I never do anything cool over the summer. I feel like every other kid goes on an adventure. And the coolest thing I did was go to my grandma's house and she had Klondike bars. Because every year it's the same exact thing. The teacher says we're gonna go one by one and tell the class what we did over the summer. Who wants to go first? Me, I want to go first. Okay, shoot, tell us your name and what you did. Hi, class, my name is Sarah. I'm probably going to be your future school president, by the way, so make sure you vote for me or I'll sue the school, okay? Okay, well, this summer was really fun. I got to do some really cool stuff. First, I got to go to France, and I saw the Eiffel Tower, and I ate French food. And then we went to Italy. I saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And after Italy, we went to Egypt, and I saw the pyramids. And then next to one of the pyramids there was a magic carpet. So I went down the magic carpet, and it brought me to the Sphinx. And the Sphinx was like a grand wish, and I was like, I wish my mom wasn't such a fucking bitch. God, I know, right? She's such a bitch. And then I teleported to Mexico and I swam with the dolphins. And the dolphin flew me into space and I played soccer with the astronauts on the moon. And yeah, that was just basically the first day. Wow, Sour, that was very cool. Thank you. I can tell you what happened on the other days too. No, it's fine. Let's choose someone else. All right, who's next? How about you? Me? Yeah, you. What did you do this summer? I mean, like my summer wasn't as cool as Sarah's, but I mean it was still pretty cool. I did some cool stuff. Awesome. Tell us what you did. Okay, well, I mean I did so many cool things. Like oh yeah, one day during the summer break, I was at the park. I was playing basketball with my friend. And then this old guy walks up with his dog and he says hi to us. And then I said hi back. And then my friend says, you know who that guy is, right? I said, no, who is he? And he said, oh, that guy's a pedophile that lives down the street. He kidnaps little kids with a car. And then he does pedophile things to them. And I was like, oh, cool. So yeah, I got to meet a real life pedophile. And most people don't really get to do that, but I did. And you thought that was cool? Yeah, you know, because like I've only seen pedophiles on TV. I never saw one in real life. So, I mean, it was pretty cool. I've seen a pedophile too before, Mrs. Gold. I'm sorry, Sarah. Did I interrupt your story when you spoke? No? Then shut the fuck up during my turn, okay? Okay, do you have any other stories that don't involve pedophiles? Yeah, of course I do. I have so many stories. Actually, you know what? I think that's all I got. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, well, while you guys continue sharing your summer stories, I'm just gonna go call the police. I'll be right back. I saw a pedophile once too, you know. Sarah, I said shut the fuck up. So back in middle school, we had a bomb scare, and it was pretty scary. I remember I was in class, and the principal got on a loudspeaker and was like, guys, please do not worry, don't freak out, but if we do not leave this school within the next probably 15 seconds, 14 seconds now, we will all die. So, you know, just do what you want with that information. Thank you. And we all get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. And honestly, I don't remember whether in the announcement she actually said there was a bomb or not. If she was like, guys, random thought, what if instead of being in school today, we just left and went for 20 minutes to a different school? That would be a fun little plan for today, right? And then we just did that. Or if she was like, guys, there's a fucking nuke in this bitch. Get the fuck out of here right now or else we're all gonna be Juice World. And it was probably the first option.
We're all
we all
gonna
left pretty
be
calmly.
Juice
But
World.
apparently someone called it a bomb and we had...
With quality that's guaranteed for life.
We're all gonna
Outfitter
be
doesn't just fit your bath. It fits.
So
I
back in
already
elementary
watched that
school, we
one
used to
though,
celebrate
but that was
Lunar New
like a
Year
funny
every year,
joke.
and it was pretty cool. Now, as you can tell, I am white. That
We're
is
all
true, good
gonna
catch.
be
But
Juice
my school was majority Korean
There's a
and
nuke in
Chinese,
this
so
bitch.
every
We all
year,
have to go
all
or
the
we're gonna
students,
see
parents,
Juice
and
World.
teachers would go down to the gym, and we would sing songs and learn about the history of the New Year and get red envelopes. It was a great time. I remember all the Asian kids wearing traditional clothing for the holiday, while me and the rest of the white kids were wearing Gap, because we obviously didn't have that stuff hanging in our closet. The Asian parents probably hated us, like, this is not what my father died for some cracker to be wearing Gap on the New Year. Shame on you. But I didn't care, because on that one day of the year, I was Chinese. I was out here singing Gongxi, 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 Niya, and no one could tell me shit. But we'd all be in the gym, and my principal would walk in, probably wearing a kimono because she's racist, and be like, Ni hao, everyone. Ni hao, Happy New Year. Ni hao, that means hello in Chinese. I know that word. I know it. I also know Cui. Cui, that means push. I learned that on Ni hao Kai Lian. That's a great show. By your people. I love it. Love that little tiger. So cute. And to the Korean parents, hello. Hi. I don't know how to say hello in Korean. The only word in Korean I know is hakima, which means stop. I don't know why I know that word. It's very random. But hello to everybody. Today, we will be celebrating Lunar New Year. So after my principal did her speech, that's when all the cool shit happened. We sang. We had a giant paper mache dragon come out with kids underneath it that would dance around while I assume all the little perverts in there touched each other's asses in the darkness. There was definitely a human centipede type thing happening under there. But the best part of Lunar New Year at school wasn't the singing or the ass touching. It was that I was in the school's band. And not only was I in the school's band, but I played drums in the band. And when you play drums in the band, you get to hit the gong. Bro, that gong was literally the coolest thing ever. I don't know why, but I loved hitting that shit. Just going like all day. Best feeling ever. Even though the teacher would tell me to shut the fuck up, but I didn't care. And I was fucking good at it too. I hit that shit like my life depended on it. Probably almost broke the fucking gong. But I loved that thing. And I was so excited to pound away on that gong on Lunar New Year. But my teacher was like, there's no way your ass is playing that thing. So I had to pound away on the bass drum instead, which sucks because it's such a boring sound and you barely can hear it. I can literally not play the bass drum, and you wouldn't realize I stopped it with the sound of all the other instruments and shit. And I did that. I just didn't play it. I was just sitting in the back watching somebody else have fun with the gong. So in reality, being in the band wasn't really the best part. But what was the best part was getting the red envelope. After we were done in the gym, our teacher would give every student a red envelope. Now, usually red envelopes, you get money, but this is a public school and we don't have air conditioning, so instead, every student got a gold chocolate coin and a white rabbit, which is like a Chinese Tootsie Roll. Now, before you freak out and go in the comments like that is not a Tootsie Roll at all, I know it's not, but I don't know how to explain it. This thing is so fucking good. It's like milk in your mouth, but it's chewy and sweet. I don't know how to explain it, but it's amazing. If you've never had one before, you need to try it before you die. I don't know if they're even a big deal to Chinese kids, but they're a big deal to me. I love that shit. But anyway, guys, that was my Lunar New Year story. Thanks for watching my video. If you haven't tried White Rabbit, go get some. Let me know in the comments if your school celebrated Lunar New Year too. And as always, guys, before this video starts, I just want to settle out for a second because I really want to get a PS5 and I got no money, so I want to let everybody know that I have Christmas merch. Yes, that's right. If you head over to my merch store right now, we have all kinds of Christmas merch. We got Christmas mugs, Christmas sweaters, Christmas shirts and hood. America as a kid, we were always taught about the story of Thanksgiving. The Pilgrims came to America and they were like, hey, look at those Indians, let's go talk to them. And the Indians were like, oh, hello, Pilgrims, would you like some corn? And they're like, corn? What's that? And they're like, oh my god, you don't know corn? Bro, you can do all kinds of stuff with corn. You can make corn bread, you can make corn flour, you can make corn puffs, or you can just eat it like that. It's great, but be careful when you eat the corn because it doesn't digest well and you'll find it whole in your shit. And you're like, wow, this is great. I love corn and I love the Indians. Let's go eat a turkey together and live happily ever after. And that's the story of Thanksgiving. The end. Is that true, teacher? Of course it's true. It's in the textbooks. Everything in the textbooks are true. But then how come Tiananmen Square isn't in the Chinese history textbooks? Well, that's because the Chinese are liars, Jasmine. But, teacher, I'm Chinese. Am I a liar too? No, well, no, Jasmine. You see, she knows too much. Take her out. So, my elementary school teacher taught me that Native Americans and Pilgrims are just homies chilling together, but as I grew up and discovered the truth, this is actually not what happened, and since Thanksgiving is right around the corner, I would like to tell you all the actual truth about what actually happened on Thanksgiving, because you all deserve to know the truth, and this is the real story of Thanksgiving. So first off, the Pilgrims were in Holland, and they're like, yo, we want to have a holy-ass place, so they dip, and they're trying to get to Manhattan, but they somehow ended up in Massachusetts, and when they got to Mass, they hit a rock, and they got off the boat, and they were like, hey, yo, anyone here? And no one answered, so they were like, all right, bet, let's take this shit. But then, an Indian dude named Squanto came up to them, and was like, yo, guess what, I speak English. And they're like, what? But how could that be? You are not white. And he's like, yeah, I ain't, but I can speak English, you racist fuck. I was actually enslaved by a dude in Spain, and then some monk saved me, and then I went to England, and now I'm here, and my family's dead, and I speak English. And they're like, dope. So now since the Pilgrims got Squanto speaking English, he taught them all kinds of shit. He taught them how to grow corn, and I think that's it. But he also got them to make a peace agreement with the native chief, Massasoit, and they would trade together. What did they trade? I got no clue. But then the first Thanksgiving finally began. The Pilgrims were like, we got vegetables and fish and shit, and the Indians were like, we just killed 5 deer, and we would like you to have them. And they're like, thanks for the deer. And they sat down and ate together. And then this is when the true part of Thanksgiving happens that your teacher never tells you about. After the Native Americans and Pilgrims finished eating, out from the trees a turkey appeared, and Squanto looked up and said, let's stuff this turkey. And all the Indians and the Pilgrims took turns double teaming the turkey, and after they finished, they took the turkey, cut his head off, and then they ate it together with their stuffing inside of the turkey. It was a great communal feast, and I clearly don't know what happens after they eat. I watched like 5 fucking videos and read 3 articles about what really happens.
Don't you forget about me. Don't you?
And Nova's ready to nut.
Putting down that first card.
7 and 0's on. I mean, I don't
Feeling I can't compare. Similar to that of a lily blooming in spring.
This is weird. You're not big on Noble's team.
Oh, and when you jump in, similar feeling, slapping a homeless man while he's sleeping.
Okay, I might just leave. Yeah, he's doing that talking for no reason thing.
Oh, my Uber Eats.
Wait. What's the order?
Coffee. Why is it cold? I ordered it warm. Guys, chop me in the dick.
She slaps him.
I need it fucking warm. Stupid Mr. Boba bastards can't get an order right.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow, Brock. That was cold.
Cold-blooded.
Like no.
That was as cold as Nogla's coffee.
Do it, Snogla. Do
I'm
it.
doing it. I did it.
Order execute number 47. Nogla. Do it, Nogla.
What order number do I do?
4. Oh, you're a fucking prick. Yeah. You have to pay for that. I can't afford that right now. Yeah, man. Revenue is rough during the first early months. Alright, you guys ready? Yep. Come on, more energy! Are you guys ready? For fuck's sakes.
Just duplicate the audio systems like.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can take. We've done loads of screens. You can just insert anything in there. Draw penises.
It really sounds like he's just saying it. Nogla, we're not playing
Draw
Scriblio.
penises.
Nogla, we're not playing Scriblio. Fuck.
This is Uno.
Yeah, we're playing Uno.
Hey, Nogla, what are you gonna do after we finish playing Uno?
Don't fucking do it, Brian. Don't you fucking. Whoever talks, now it's not. Just let everyone know.
Oh, shit! Nogla, what do you like to do in your free time?
Draw penises.
Ryan, it's your turn! He's focusing on the soundboard more than anything right now.
Yeah.
There's a sentence I need to capture forever. I caught it. Do you like this, Evan? Thought about it. Do you like this? The sentence I had to keep forever.
What is it? Brian would do me. Brian would do me. Brian would do me.
No!
Why did you keep?
I forgot about that!
Yeah, baby.
4-0, use it wisely.
Wow. Fuck! You can fuck Brian. Brian would do me.
Oh, shit.
He's on fucking Uno, guys, and we're miles behind. Someone gets it.
Wait, where's the 7? What color? What color?
I don't have a
Yellow.
7. I can fuck.
Yellow.
I can't do anything.
Yellow. What the fuck are you doing? You are a dumb guy, David.
David, it's all up to you.
He doesn't have green, dude. He doesn't have fucking
Oh,
green.
fuck you. Great butt.
See, I know what I'm doing, dude. I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Ah!
Yo,
Don't save that audio by Brian. Do not
Save it.
Save that. Don't. I was trying to jump.
Save it.
Please don't save it.
I missed it. It's so crazy how you came while you're jumping in. Time to rip it.
What? Huh? Okay.
Fuck it. I'll just do it now.
Who you got? They're all exactly the same. Just Brian Suits.
Oh, wrong one.
Fuck's sake, Evan.
That was the one I meant.
Brian would do me.
The shit.
Oh. Okay.
Scotty likes yellow. Scotty likes yellow.
Likes green.
He likes green?
Green.
He has a green.
Yeah, he likes green.
He has a green.
I'm sorry?
You dumbass, why didn't you hold on to it?
Good question.
You know what? We're just gonna make it Nogla's fault. Go ahead.
No! You hit! Oh, did you get another green?
Yeah.
You got another green and fuck's sake. Okay, whatever.
Still was your fault.
And boom. Not enough strong here, Evan.
Boom.
Oh!
Very strong.
Brain it would be.
Oh, wow. You start off very, very strong.
I swear to God, if you have another one.
Scotty was about to fucking punch his monitor.
Like how Ryan doesn't talk anymore, he just looks for perfect sound bites.
Oh, wow. He's on one card.
Oh, that's what Uno means?
Yes. Yes.
What color do you have, Brian?
Not that one.
Oh, well, sorry.
Scotty, what color do you want?
Doesn't matter.
Bitch.
Red! What color? Red!
No. Yes. Very good.
Why would you do yellow?
I'm colorblind.
Sure he has all yellow. Keep it yellow and Nogla's gonna get Uno.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, let's keep it yellow, everybody. Let's keep it all yellow.
Oh, let's everyone keep it yellow.
Keep it yellow. Fuck.
Come on, hey, come on! Bitches.
No.
What's wrong?
No.
What's wrong?
He's probably upset about his soundboard, not the game.
Oh, wait a second. Does he win? No.
Oh, wait.
What's the worst example of bad parenting you've ever witnessed? A mother let her kid play in the stream of wood chips coming out of a wood chipper and yelled at the guy who was cutting down trees because he told the kid to get away from it. She was on her phone the whole time. There could have been nails and stones in that wood that could have hit the kid, but nope, it was the bloke's fault for chipping wood and not letting the kid play in it. I went to breakfast with a good friend and a friend of a friend. We pick up the friend of a friend who brings her 3-year-old son along. The kid is crying and making all kinds of noise. The mother responds by telling the kid that I have a gun and if he doesn't calm down I was going to shoot the kid. First-hand account. My mom would let me work during the summer from 7-7 and when I came back to the hotel room she'd pay for another night, get me a MC chicken and then shoot up H while I watched TV. This really reminds me of awful points in my childhood as well. I am so sorry. Hopefully you're way and better.
Oh.
This happened many years ago, when I was about 10 or so. My mom's ex-friend. We'll call her Patty for the sake of this story. Well, one day, there's a knock at the door and Mom goes and opens it to find Patty's son Joel, also not his real name, who was only about 5 years old at the time. His mom is sitting in the car in our driveway, and he's just standing there by himself. And my mom says, "Hey there, Joel. What brings you guys here today?" Little John then replies, "Mom said to ask if you have a can." Mom says, "A can? Like a soda can?" John says, "I dunno. She said she needs a can so she can smoke her crack." My mom, who was most certainly not any sort of angel herself, fumes with anger over this. He says, "John, go inside and play with me. Close the door and don't look outside." So John comes in and I put some cartoons on for him to watch. I then peek out the window whilst he is occupied with the show. My mom is screaming at Patty through her open car window. I couldn't hear what was being said, but they were both screaming at each other. And then my mom punches Patty in the face through the open window, pulls open her door, drags her out of the car onto the driveway pavement by her hair and beats the ever-living sin out of the woman. After she finally lets Patty go, Patty gets up, gets into her car, and drives away, with her son still in our house. Luckily, my mom was friends with Patty's brother-in-law, which is how we knew her in the first place, and she called him, who in turn called the kid's grandpa, since he himself was at work, to come and pick him up. Grandpa apologized profusely for Patty's behavior and took John home with him. Your mom is a badass. I work in foster care. I can tell you roughly 14, up to 28, horrible stories of parents. The ones that get me the worst are the parents who sell their beautiful 13-year-old daughter for M, or the mom who laughed at her 8-year-old when he told her that his dad and stepdad were sexually abusing him and all of his siblings. He begs to go home now and all I can say is, you know better than me why you live here. But, frick everyone. I'm a medical student and I just got off of my pediatrics rotation. The most haunting thing about child abuse is how, when you separate a child from their abuser, the child still begs to go home and begs to see the parent that hurt them. They are much too young to understand that what they're missing is the parent they deserve, not the parent they have. I've seen parents lock their 2 children in their bedroom so they could play WoW. Anytime the kids came out and did anything kids normally do, they were immediately sent to their room. The lock was changed so it was on the outside. The most disturbing thing I saw firsthand was unlocking the door and nearly puking from a foul smell. They crapped themselves and threw it into the ceiling fan. Crap was everywhere. Child Services was contacted not long after. In a grocery store, and I see a probably 5-year-old walk across the apple display, taking a bite out each apple on the bottom row. Look around, then place the apple back with the bite out of view. I stood there with my jaw dropped, waiting for her parents to do something. Finally the woman saw me, looked at the kid and said, "Gasp Meacher." No one promptly turned around and continued to let her do it. My sister was worried that her 7-year-old son wasn't at the level as the other kids, and considered holding him back a year. She didn't end up going through with it, but my brother-in-law found this development super funny and kept openly mocking his own son until his own son started crying his eyes out and needing a hug. I was absolutely horrified that his own father was acting like a schoolyard bully. I'm a prosecutor, so I've seen a lot of really terrible parenting. Once we were investigating a man for sexually assaulting his girlfriend's 14-year-old daughter. The girl was interviewed and disclosed that he had, in fact, been having sex with her. The detective went and told her mother what she had disclosed and mom's response was, "So you're telling me she's gone from being my daughter to being my competition?" had a girl in our foster care program whose father used to get mad because she would throw up when he would rape her. He fixed this problem by handcuffing her to the toilet when he did it. We had another kid that was incredibly good at making paper airplanes. Like he could make one and tell you how far it would go, which way it would turn, how many flips it would make, etc. before he ever threw it. I asked him one day how he learned and he said whenever my parents abused me, I would just go to my room and make paper airplanes. The kid made a lot of freaking airplanes. Turns out he was one of the worst abuse cases our DHS had ever encountered in the county he was from. I could go on for quite a while. Hard to pick just one. To the second one, you have to admire him for finding some coping mechanism. That's some resilience. I was driving along my street when this 6 years old kid rolls out of a driveway on a tricycle. I come to a stop and wait for him to get out of my way as he seemed to be doing. His mother runs down the driveway and just starts screaming at me rather than get her kid out of the road. Another car comes up behind and without waiting just goes around, clipping the kid's tricycle, knocking him on the ground, and the lady just screams at me even more. She wouldn't stop or get out of the way. I finally just held my horn down till she gathered her kid up and got out of the way. I work at a fast food restaurant, and while what I see probably isn't what most people would consider the worst, I still see quite a bit of bad crap going on. A lot of loud, emotionally abusive parents yelling at kids, kids that look dirty, kids without proper clothing in bad weather, just everything. Was a truck driver once in my life. Saw two parents on the road with a crying child maybe 8 years old in the back. They each took turns shooting up H. Apparently it's common practice to drop your kids at Chuck E. Cheese, with or without tokens, and shoot H in the bathroom. I'm a teacher. The examples of bad parenting I could give are staggering. The worst examples end up with me calling Child Protective Services. Like the child who talked about naked family time, or the 14-year-old who left school to play designated driver for drunk parent, or any number of other things. Day-to-day normal bad though, is any parent who talks crap in front of their child. I don't care who you're bad-mouthing. Don't do it in front of your child. All that comes to school. All of it. Not necessarily the worst, but oppressing in some ways. Overheard a woman tell her child in a condescending manner, "Don't be stupid. Lizards don't lay eggs." Whilst at the Reptile House at London Zoo during a zookeeper talk. An irate mother of a girl in a private school's music program made a big scene in front of the faculty and students because her daughter had not been selected to sing a solo in a school concert. The student had been very clear to the faculty that she didn't want the part, nor was her voice suited for it. Still, her overbearing mother insisted that she audition against her will. As a result, the girl was yanked out of the school she loved by her parents and embarrassed, all because the mother's ego required that her daughter be the shining star in front of others. I know someone who was raised this way by a single mother. The girl is now 35 and still acts like the world owes her something. It's a sad way to raise a child. A little while ago in a supermarket in London, a young girl was screaming at the cashier for asking for it for the large bottle of vodka she was buying. As the cashier continued to ask for it, the girl opened her coat to reveal a large swollen belly, and shouted, "Of course I'm old enough to drink vodka. I'm frickin' pregnant." Bloody heck, this is exactly like something you'd read in a joke book. My mother's mother was a pretty crappy one. She wouldn't let her go to school because she wanted her to become a housewife. She let her boyfriend sexually abuse my mother when she was little and seduced my mother's boyfriends. Everything about that is freaking awful and bizarre. Lived under some horrible people for 8 months. They would have parties in the middle of the week till 2 or 3 a.m. regularly. But one particular disturbing story, their girl around 10-12, was having regular night terrors. She would wake up screaming. We lived in the basement, their bedrooms were on the 2nd floor, so a whole story between us. And we could hear the dad stomping down the hallway and slam open the door and start screaming at the top of his lungs. "You better fricking knock that crap off. Stop crying, you craphead. They're nothing but fricking dreams. You hear me? Dreams, it's nothing worth crying over. Worst neighbors ever. We never felt sorry that our dog barked all day. He hated them. When their kids started crying, our dog started to cry and whine and howl in sympathy. But the adults he would bark and snarl at. Loved people of all ages. The dog. I could trust his instincts of a good human. I know downright tragic examples of horrifying parenting, but they're such downers. I'll go with a story which is more of a slightly humorous element to it. I'm at a red light in the right-hand lane. Right-hand turns on red are legal where I am. There's a car coming but it's a ways away. I turn right and cross into the left-hand lane as the incoming car was driving in the right-hand lane and I didn't want to have to accelerate too fast. The upcoming car slows down to my speed. Woman hangs out of the driver's side window with a beer in one hand that's on the wheel and a cigarette in the other as she's flipping me off and says, "Be careful, mother. I've got kids in the back." Then she sped off well above the speed limit. Hey, I have children in the trunk of this car. A woman on the bus told her approximately 6-year-old son to tell an approximately 11-year-old schoolgirl to move out the way, but referred to the girl as that fat cow. I lost my crap, probably displaying pretty bad parenting skills myself as I...
Reddit story, neighbors killed my dog. Where the fuck is this ancient debris? Reddit story, my neighbors killed my dog.
Like the video and subscribe right now, or this guy will punch you. Reddit confessions.
Wait,
I
who
still
punched him?
like the video and subscribe right now, or this guy will punch you. Reddit confessions. I stood by and allowed my wife to almost kill our son. I was happy she did it. Okay, fair warning. This one is long as hell. Apologies for that, but this is very hard for me, and I have been carrying it for a lot of years. On the advice of my therapist, I've written it all out, to try to work out my feelings on it. He didn't advise me to submit it to Reddit, of course, but I have struggled with this for a long time, and I need to hear other people's opinion on it. I still really have no idea how I feel about it, even after all these years, but I will submit for judgment by the masses. I know I did wrong on some things, probably a lot of things. I tried to do my best that I could. My son was very troubled. Very troubled. If you have seen the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin, it will really help to understand what I'm talking about, because I swear to God, when I watched that film I thought I was watching a documentary of my life. I felt like the writer must have had cameras hidden in my damn house. That's how accurate it was. The only difference is that in the movie, the boy appears normal to his father, and only reveals his true nature to his mother. With my son he didn't have that mask. His insane behavior was the same with everyone. From the day he was born, my son just came out wrong. He was planned. My wife and I tried to get pregnant, and were ecstatic when he was born. He was wanted and loved. We showered affection on him, and really tried to give him a happy childhood. But from the day we brought him home from the hospital, he was miserable. He cried for 13 months straight. I'm not exaggerating. 13 months without a break. He cried until he had no voice left and kept crying. You could see his little face scrunched up, and no sound coming out. Totally hoarse. There were times he would literally be crying in his sleep. I've never seen or heard of any other kid able to do that. We brought him to doctors, specialists, tried changing his diet, held him, rocked him, toys, swaddling, music, mobiles, everything we could think of. Nothing worked. 13 months of grating, grinding, no sleep hell. Once he got over the crying stage, we thought we were out of the woods. But it quickly became clear that for some unknown reason, he was just angry at being alive. I never saw that kid have a genuine joyous smile once in the time I knew him. I saw him grin a vicious horrible grin many times, taking a perverse pleasure from causing pain or suffering, or breaking a rule. But a smile from real pleasure at something nice? No, never, not once. He had no interest in anything positive. He was fueled by hate, and everything he did was bent toward that. As soon as he could walk, his mission in life was to destroy things. He would break, or try to break anything that came in his range. Smash it, chew it, throw it in the toilet, whatever he could. After a while he figured out how to get his diaper off, and took great pleasure in shitting and pissing any way he could. After a while he figured out he could hide it, and started pissing and shitting in places we wouldn't find right away, grinding it into carpets, making it even more of a problem to clean. and making the house stink. When he got older, ages 9 to 15, he would piss and shit in our bed until we got a lock on our door and he wasn't able to get in anymore. Then he'd just take a dump in the hallway in front of our room. That biological warfare started around 2.5 years old, and he never grew out of it. I'll try to speed it up as I could literally go on for days about this stuff, but as he grew older, he became more and more unmanageable. He would bite, kick, scream, scratch, and spit at anyone trying to do anything with him. He was kicked out of school twice, before he was 9, then let him back in, and then kicked him out for good. He had to change schools. The next one put him in a special class that kept him away from the other students. We had to install a door and lock on the kitchen, because he would steal knives and use them to gouge the walls/furniture or chase people with them. When he was 10, he stabbed me pretty good in the hip and ass. I still have the scars. As he grew older, he grew darker. He moved into setting things on fire and torturing local animals. There was a stray dog that hung out around the park near our house. My son blinded it in one eye with a BBQ fork. He would dip cats' tails in gasoline and light them on fire. He became violent, stinking, vicious beast that lived in our house. We couldn't do anything with him. I will take this opportunity to preempt that tsunami of messages. Yes, we had a kid in ducking therapy. He saw a psychiatrist twice a week, and had God knows how many different medications prescribed to him over the years. Nothing worked. Therapy didn't work. Meds didn't work. Nothing ducking worked. He was like a poison cloud of hate and fury lashing out at anything in his reach. When my son was 16, my wife got pregnant again. I can't tell you how different our reaction was. Instead of joy, we felt horror. This pregnancy had not been planned, and we really were at a loss over what to do. My son had been such an unending nightmare for 16 years, we couldn't take the idea of starting again from the beginning. We talked a lot about terminating, but access to abortion was not as easy in those days as it is now, and B, my wife was very against it. We talked about many options. In the end, we decided that my wife would have the baby, and if it turned out evil we would put it up for adoption. We knew we just couldn't do it again with another child like our son. We had a daughter. She was normal. Suddenly we saw what our lives should have been like the whole time, how things would have been, had our son not been himself. She laughed at things. She breastfed without biting. She didn't have teeth yet anyway, but you could tell she was just trying to eat, not tear her mom's breast off. After 4 months she was sleeping through the night. She was happy. She was normal. I can't describe the relief and happiness that we both felt. I don't have the words for it. This is where I believe I may have started really pulling back from my son. Up until that time, whatever mistakes I made, I had always tried to do the best for my son. I'm convinced of that. I tried to help him, and love him, and care for him. I really tried. But when my daughter was born, my wife and I both instinctively just turned toward her. She became our focus, not from malice, but just because she was so much easier. She was so happy and sweet. Every moment we were with her was like magic. I understand this was wrong, but we honestly couldn't help it. I don't have a better explanation than that. My son hadn't given a shit about my wife being pregnant. I honestly don't know if he really understood it, but when we brought our daughter home he started acting out even more. I didn't think it was possible, but he took it up another notch. At this time he was 17, and we were having blowout screaming matches daily. Usually after we fought, he would storm out of the house and disappear for hours at a time, or come back the next morning. It was a relief. I started to actually look forward to our fights, because it would get him away from us for a while. After the birth of our daughter, my relationship with my son was almost entirely gone. Our only real interactions were screaming at each other. My wife was even worse with him. She just had nothing left. By that time, if our son even came into the same room as her, she would just stop whatever she was doing and start screaming, "Get the duck away from me. Get away. Get the duck out," until he left. He started spending more and more time out of the house, which was a blessing for us. I have no idea what he got up to out in the world, but we were just happy it wasn't being inflicted on us. As a consequence of our son's behavior, we had invested heavily in locks around our house. All of the cheap, thin interior doors in our home had been replaced with thick, dense wood doors that couldn't be kicked through. equipped with key locks, that my wife and I carried keys to. I know it sounds extreme, but locks and heavy doors were the best way we had found to create safe spaces from him. And again, before I'm inundated with messages, I was not locking my son in rooms like a prisoner. He had free reign of the house, and could come and go as he pleased. My wife and I would lock ourselves in rooms, to protect ourselves from him. If anything, we were the prisoners in our own home. On the day in question, I had fought with my son in the morning, and he had left the house in a rage. My wife and I were enjoying some peace and quiet in the kitchen, while our daughter napped in our bedroom. And then my daughter began crying. Any parent who has young children can tell you, you get used to your child's cries and you can tell after a while what they need. They cry differently if they are hungry, or need changing, or are just restless, and want to be held. Babies can communicate pretty well, before they can speak. This cry was none of those things. This cry was terror. The second we heard it, my wife and I were both up out of our chairs, and running to the room. The door was locked, of course, and it took a few seconds to get the right key and get it open. My son was in the room. We lived in a bungalow, and the bastard had climbed in the window to get to her. He was standing over her crib with a steak knife in his hand. I have no idea where he got it. It wasn't one of ours. We controlled our knives very carefully and always kept them in locked drawers. I think he may have stolen it from one of our neighbors' houses. He had broken her skin twice already, once in the belly area, and once on her arm. I could see blood running down. When I entered the room, he was dragging the back of the knife down her face, not cutting, almost tickling her with it, teasing her while she screamed. He looked up at us and smiled. Before I knew what I was doing, I was already moving, running to put myself between them. I didn't think about it, I just moved instinctively. Even with that, my wife got there faster. It was like a movie on fast forward. She got to our son, and bashed his hand away, knocking the knife across the room, and then shoved him with her whole body weight, so hard that he flew away from the crib, and bounced off the wall. I picked up my daughter, and held her, while my wife screamed us. I could see her shaking, almost convulsing. I can remember the smell of the room, the sound of my daughter screaming and wailing, the look on my son's face as he stood there. Just nothing. Blank, dead. There was nothing in his eyes, no emotion. He looked like an alien to me. I watched my wife take a step toward him. I could have reached out and stopped her, but I didn't. She stepped forward again, very close to him. I could have stopped her again, but I didn't. She waited, looking at him for maybe 3 to 5 seconds without moving. And then she punched him in the face. Now, until this point, you may have been picturing my wife as a typical woman. Small frame, dainty, delicate. This is not the case. My wife does have a small frame, but dainty and delicate she is not. Never has been. Since I've known her, since her early teens, my wife has been a boxer. MMA didn't exist back then, but karate and boxing were big in those days, and my wife was a very talented amateur. She was about 130 pounds. She carried a lot of muscle and she knew how to punch. I had 70 pounds on her back then, and I have no doubt that in a real fight between me and her she could have, and would have pounded me flat. Neither of us had ever laid a hand on our son in anger before, but something broke in her that day, and all the years of anger and pain and sorrow and frustration just came pouring out. When she hit him, his head snapped back, and blood started pouring out of his nose. He hardly reacted. He just looked at her with this shocked expression, like he didn't know how to process what had just happened. She waited another second, and then she hit him again. I could have reached out and stopped her. I could have dragged her out of the room, taken her away, calmed her. I didn't. I just stood there and watched while she systematically started to pound him to a pulp. Every time he brought his hands to cover one part, she would blast him somewhere else. Body, head, over and over. He started screaming, crying out, yelling for her to stop. It's the most genuine reaction I'd ever seen him have to anything in his whole life. But she wasn't stopping. I watched her ramping up, hitting harder, faster, working him like a heavy bag. He tried to swing at her, and she slipped him easily. She was on autopilot, sinking down into her training. I stood there watching for a minute. Then I turned my back on them, and took my daughter out of the room. I brought my daughter to the kitchen, and gave her a bath in the sink. I found that he had cut her a third time on the sole of her foot. all the cuts were superficial. I cleaned her up and held her until she calmed. I put Listerine and band-aids on her cuts. In our bedroom, I could hear my son screaming, calling my wife horrible names, telling her he would cut her head off and duck her corpse. After a while, I didn't hear him saying anything anymore, didn't even hear him crying out. I assumed that he must have been knocked out, but I could still hear her beating him. That went on for a long time. Long enough for my daughter to drift off, to sleep in my arms. I just sat at the kitchen table waiting for her to finish. Finally she came out, and sat down across from me. Her hands were swollen and red. Her face and arms were splattered with blood. Her chest was heaving. We just stared at each other without saying anything. After a while I asked her, "Is he dead?" She looked back at me, and answered, "I ducking hope so." I nodded. That was all there was to say about that. I understood how she felt perfectly. I felt the same. I didn't know what to do, so we just sat there waiting silently. Eventually my wife started crying, and went to go take a shower. I just stayed where I was holding our daughter. After a long while, I heard moaning and sobbing coming from our room. It turned out that my son wasn't dead. I went in to see how bad it was, and it was pretty bad. I've never seen a more merciless beating laid onto anyone, before or since. He was lying on the floor, rolling around with blood leaking out of his face, lying in a pool of vomit. His nose was squashed flat out across his face. Both of his eyes were completely swollen shut, and starting to blacken already. I could see that a couple of his fingers were bent out at weird angles, and he had pissed his pants. I think he must have been missing teeth, but I couldn't see any on the floor and I couldn't see inside his mouth. His lips were all puffed up and swollen. From talking to my wife about it later, I know now that she had systematically beaten every part of his body, focusing heavily on his legs. She told me she kicked him in the groin repeatedly until her legs got tired, and had kept beating his body along, after he had passed out. When my wife came out of the shower, I still didn't know what to do about our son. I didn't know whether to call the police or an ambulance, take him to the hospital myself. I honestly didn't have any idea what to do. After a while I realized that I simply didn't care what happened to him anymore, and we decided to just let him live, or die on his own. There was an in-law suite in the basement that we had never really used, and my wife, my daughter and I just moved down there. We simply ceded the top floor of the house to my son, and locked everything down, separated our lives entirely. There was plenty of food in the upstairs cabinets, enough for a couple weeks or more. He had a washroom and bedrooms to use. We had a washroom in the basement, a small kitchenette, and a separate entrance, so we just stopped going upstairs. We just decided we were done with him. I figured we'd let his food run out, and see what happened. Over the next week we could hear him moving around upstairs sometimes. I think he just spent most of time lying in bed recovering. I went to work, watching on high alert in case he attacked me in the driveway, but he never did. My wife stayed home with our daughter. She was never out of our sight. One night we heard him going ballistic, smashing things and banging. We didn't respond. He never tried to get downstairs, or get near us though. I think he was afraid that, if he got near us again, my wife might finish the job on him. After 3 weeks down in the basement, we hadn't heard anything from up above for a few days, and I ventured upstairs to the main floor of the house. The place was demolished, and there was no sign of my son. He was gone. It took months to repair the damage he had done, and get the main floor back to normal again. There was food and shit smeared all over the walls, and broken glass on the floor, big holes in the drywall. He had ripped the place apart. He tore up the linoleum in a corner of the kitchen, and emptied an entire foam fire extinguisher into the living room. I feel thankful that he didn't burn the house down with us in it. I'm honestly not sure why he didn't. The kid wasn't shy about lighting things on fire. After that, I lived in fear every day that he would come back, that he would ambush us out of the blue, and try to kill us. We moved house about 3 years later, and I finally stopped being afraid that he would show up again, as now he had no idea where we were. I finally felt safe from him. All this happened a long time ago. My son was born in the spring of 1971. My daughter was born in 88. I'm an old man now. I'll be 70 this year, and my wife passed from cancer in 2016. My daughter is 31 now. I moved in with her and her husband after my wife passed. I've got 2 granddaughters and they are the joy of my life. I see a therapist a couple times a month to talk about all this. I don't know where my son is. The last time I saw him was when he was lying on the floor of our bedroom, bleeding and smashed. I haven't heard from him since he left. More than 30 years now. I don't want to. I carry a lot of guilt from that time, and a lot of conflicted emotions. I didn't beat him myself, but I allowed him to be beaten, and I thought he deserved it. I was happy it happened. I didn't try to kill him, but I would have been happy if he died. I will say that I do hope he was able to overcome his demons and go live a normal life somewhere. If he wasn't able to do that, if he stayed the way he was, then I truly do hope someone out there killed him. When I knew him, he was a rabid dog, and whichever way it went, I just hope he isn't still out there hurting anyone else. You've been visited by Danger Doggo. This doggo will attack you with a knife, unless you comment. Stay away. Parent of killers, what's your story? Most of my family is 99% certain that my cousin murdered his best friend when they were about 12. He's always been a very strange kid, prone to fits of violence. He once tried to beat my other cousin with a canoe for splashing him, and his dad has done time for child molestation. The 2 of them were alone by a river. My cousin came back and very calmly told his parents that his friend had drowned. The kid had evidence of blunt force trauma to the head, but my cousin said that he had slipped and fell. The Durham medical experts attested that it was not a wound that would have been caused merely by a slip and fall. But my cousin had a great lawyer and got off. I don't hang around that side of the family anymore, for several reasons. Scary to think that he is a free man. My great-aunt was dating this guy and this guy really wanted to have physical relations with her. It was 1930s Italy in a remote town. Physical intimacy before marriage, even to a fiancé, basically made you an instant towness. Anyway, he promised to marry her if they did and she said yes. Well, a few days later she sees him flirting with another woman. So she goes home, grabs her father's gun and kills him in the streets after luring him in. She only got a few years in prison and moved to Toronto a year later. Happily married with 5 kids. My son killed a family friend when he was 17. The family friend had been molesting him from 7-12 before finding other boys. When he was 17, he ran across this man who propositioned him for physical intimacy and my son lost it. He stabbed him in the heart with a knife and he had a heart attack and died. He did 8 years for manslaughter. His life is a wreck. He got out and wanted to go to college and get a job. College was too much for him because he was around kids his age who were more concerned about what to do on Saturday night, whereas he was worried about his parole officer showing up with 8 armed cops at our house. He completed his degree in psychology and still couldn't find a job. He couldn't even find a job at organizations that help ex-convicts because he couldn't pass a background check. He started to be unhinged and committed suicide. And he died believing that he did something wrong and to have deserved the life that he got. That is probably one of the most heartbreaking things I have ever read. I know it doesn't mean much, but I am so sorry for your loss. I was 3. My grandparents had full custody of me. My dad was a heavy drug user and alcoholic. From my understanding, my mom was to an extent. But my dad was way worse. My mom also had a lot of health issues. I'm not sure all the details of her health. She was bipolar for sure, and was on several heavy meds which she often let my dad use. She had a disability with one of her hands, but she was a very beautiful and kind woman. She was the kind of person if she had $10 and went to the store, everyone was gonna get something when she got home. My dad killed her one night. Not sure the story of that. All I know is that he chopped her up partly. Couldn't fully dismember her, but he tried. I think he got her head partly off and an arm and made a big gash from hip to hip. He hid her in our trailer closet for 3 days. My grandpa eventually suspected that it happened, and called the cops. According to neighbors, the next day he came over and drank beer and watched football and didn't even seem to be a changed person at all. I'm now 21. My dad is gonna be serving at least another 8-10 years in prison. He had the chance for parole after 15 years and was denied, but he could serve his whole life. Up until I was 18. I could and did visit him. I didn't really like to, but I did it to make my family happy. I didn't know how to feel about him. And still don't TBH. I had my visitation rights taken away at 18 since I was a victim of his crimes. I could have it overturned. But not really wanting to, honestly. He only calls when he wants money. Gets well over $1,000 a year from my grandma. I was lied and told it was basically an accidental death until I googled my dad's name when I was 11. I didn't speak to him for over a year and it was right before Christmas too. My first memory is seeing my mom's grey blue closed casket. Obligatory not my kid, but my stepdad's kid, which we will call Jay. He went on a murder spree. He wanted to kill all his family members. He successfully killed both his maternal and fraternal grandfathers. He got caught midway through the murder spree cause he left his great aunt alive and tied up. She got free after he left and called the police and his mom, who was next on the list. Jay stole his great aunt's phone so he could pretend to be her and meet up with his mom. He ended up meeting the police instead. He had tried going to other relatives' homes, but it was in the middle of the workday and people weren't home. Otherwise he would have killed more before getting caught. He got 100 years with 0 chances of parole. The judge said the sentence was symbolic because by the time it's over, there won't be anyone left alive to remember his heinous acts. Not me, but my mother was in a relationship with a serial killer pedophile. In the early to mid-80s my mom started dating this guy. She already had my older sister with another man. New boyfriend was a doting stepdad. They lived in Las Vegas. My mom ran Keno and he was a card counter. She'd helped disguise him because he was blacklisted from most casinos for the aforementioned card counting. I came along. They continued to be the happy little super dysfunctional family until the FBI grabs my mom from work and interrogates her for hours about him. He's a stack pedophile murderer. My mom didn't know. She dabbled in low-level criminality, but not that stuff. Splits town with us kids. Gets back with older sister's dad. I grow up not knowing this until I'm 14 and my parents divorce and dad asks for a DNA test for me and I'm floored. Your dad isn't your dad, it's actually this evil man who's on death row. My mom's a huge drunken Greek addict. She can't even speak to me about this without a full-fledged mental breakdown. So everything I know is spotty. She passed away 4 years ago. I'm going through her stuff and find some letters from the History Channel contacting her to participate in a documentary about him. One thing that chills me to my core, he used to call her his first victim's name during physical intimacy. She swore she never knew until after the fact and I believe her. My uncle violated and murdered his disabled daughter and tried to frame someone else so he could collect insurance money. He got away with it for almost 20 years. One day, I get a phone call from my dad saying that we should expect the family name in the news and why. Ex-fiancé of 7 years together. He started doing them without me knowing 5 years and 2 kids in. Tried to get him help when I found out. Left him because he refused it. They caught him in his victim's car. He confessed 12 days into his trial. Got life and 10. Said he wanted to know how it felt to kill someone. I'm raising our 2 kids. They don't know yet. Don't plan on telling them until they are old enough. Kills me that they will have to live with a burden like that. It's massively unfair. They certainly don't deserve it, and neither did the victim or his family. Off the M. He was the type of person that would help the homeless. Generous, outgoing, excessively intelligent and ambitious. How heavy drugs can change people into monsters. That's horrible. I hope it doesn't affect your kids too much when they find out. Good thing you left before he got too crazy. My adopted sister got into a car wreck this weekend while off her medication this weekend. She takes it so that her epilepsy is well managed. We don't know why she didn't take the meds, but she seized a grand mal and struck a mother and her 2 kids on a sidewalk or crosswalk. The 2 kids were crushed to death, and the mother is still in the ICU. My sister is also in the hospital and we don't know if she will go to prison for the accident. Oh frick, what if the mom survives and realizes her kids are dead? When I was 10 or 11, my younger brother and I were visiting our grandparents, hanging out in the hotel. We were told that our mother had passed and our dad was going to jail. It took a while to realize what happened. I got the full story when I was 15. Dad was sleeping. Mom tried to suffocate him with a pillow. He ended up switching it around onto her, resulting in her death. According to newspaper articles, he hid her body in the woods and according to the police, they would not have found the body unless my dad told them. He was sentenced to like 15 years in prison. He got out of prison 5 years ago or so, gets caught up in the pharmaceutical drugs, which led to harder things and ends up getting some H with fentanyl laced in it, and ODs. I turned out okay. I have a hard time expressing feelings in my relationship, but my fiancé loves me and works with me. My great-aunt killed her husband years and years ago, shot him and burned the house down after years of being abused by him. From what I know, she was convicted but didn't get jail time. Instead she came in and worked in the prison kitchen so she could go home and take care of their kids every day. Most of her kids ended up involved in drugs and the like, so my part of the family has never interacted with them and we don't really talk about it. My stepson killed one of his bullies in high school. He has a cleft palate, and it's a pretty bad one. All his life he's been bullied for it. His mother and I have done everything we could to stop the bullying, but it never ceased. We contacted administrators, moved, switched schools, tried everything. Eventually, we decided on an online homeschooling program. Unfortunately, one of his bullies from his last school knew where we lived. He'd come by and taunt my stepson regularly. My wife and I were never around because the kid would come while we were working. One day, after my son tried ignoring his previous taunting, the bully figured it must have been a good idea to break in and find him. He threw a brick through our back window, which was in the guest bedroom, and proceeded to attempt to enter. Now, I partially blame myself for what happened next. My son never knew his real father, and so since I've come in, I've done everything in my power to fill in, and we grew pretty close. I ended up trusting him enough to tell him where I kept my gun. Seeing as how his mother and I work so often, I wanted him to be able to protect himself if anything were to happen if we were gone. So, he grabbed my gun, opened the door to where the bully was and shot him in the chest twice. He died before the ambulance reached the scene. My son was never charged for anything, as there was obvious evidence of a forced entry, and the neighbors claim that the bully repeatedly said he was gonna kill my son when he got inside. This happened almost 10 years ago when my son was 15. He's been to so many different psychologists and therapists since then. Something in him changed that day, like he blamed himself. For years he tried to isolate himself from the world. He became a heavy alcoholic, and even attempted suicide. He blames himself for taking another human's life even though he knows his was in danger. Seeing what happened to my boy, it's heartbreaking. I sold the gun, never got another one. To this day, he still has that look of grief and guilt in his eyes. I'm starting to believe no amount of tears will ever wash it away. My brother killed his girlfriend shortly after
That's kind of inspirational.
He still won't tell us why he
The
did it, but he
tears
did confess
can't
and has
wash it
never once
away.
denied doing it. He's in
But
prison
sometimes the
until
tears can
2046
wash
last I
some
checked.
things away.
We always knew growing
Like
up that
crying
he'd end up
over
in
your
legal
pet
trouble
makes you
eventually,
feel
but not
better
as
because
early
you
in the
know how
game.
much you love them, so the
Not a
tears
parent,
wash away
but I was
the
briefly neighbors
feeling.
with a family who had a son
But
that
the
ended up
feeling
killing them
of
because he got
killing
addicted to H and
somebody,
the
the
parents
tears
wouldn't
cannot
give him any
wash
money
that
for his
away.
habit. Not a parent, but one of my cousins is a killer. Dude was a teenager when, for some unknown reason, he decided to kill his parents and siblings. I can't say his name, so let's call him John. It was early morning, around 3, and the father was out working the graveyard shift at the one gas station in town. John had sat awake all night to make sure everyone was sound asleep. He took a shotgun that he got for his birthday, and crept down the hall to his little brother and sister's room to make sure they were asleep. Satisfied, he ventured into his mother's room, put the gun against her temple, and shot her. The blast woke up his siblings, and, turning around, he shot his brother as he ran out of his room. After making sure he was dead, he found his sister hiding in the closet and killed her too. To complete his mad fantasy, John dragged the bodies one by one into the living room and left them in an unceremonious pile. He then called his dad, crying on the phone saying the house had been robbed. His dad left work and drove as fast as he could to get home and see if his family was safe. As he burst through the front door, John shot him almost point blank in the chest, and he died soon after. Around 7:30 that same morning, he called the police to report the murders. According to family legend, the cops found him sitting on the couch, watching cartoons and eating a bowl of cereal, still bloody from moving the bodies. It's been a few years not, and the only reason he's given for doing it was that it just felt like the right thing to do. A strange cousin of mine killed his girlfriend's 4-year-old. Strange to think that same guy treated me like a friend he knew his whole life when we were introduced in a reunion years before. There was a guy from around where I grew up who beat his girlfriend's 4-year-old to death for spilling juice on his Xbox. My wife's grandma had 3 sons. One died and one's been in prison for 30 years for murder. She's still leaving everything to him in the will be see he's a better person than the other surviving brother. I work at a restaurant and the father of a killer is one of our regulars. It's a fancy restaurant. Dude is super rich. He and his wife live separate lives and he goes through a lot of girlfriends. Always 20+ years younger than him. He pays for their condos and plastic surgery. He got one of them a gold necklace that read Gold Digger and had her wear it in public. Not a lot of our respect for women. That guy. Loud, smarmy, older businessman type. Anyway, his son is the guy who killed his girlfriend in law and drained all her blood. I don't know how the dad feels about it inside, but like, outwardly, no change. Zero change in lifestyle or persona mannerisms. I'm just an outsider obviously, but you wouldn't even know it happened when it happened. You're talking about Lorne Libel and his son Blake. They were just ordered to pay 41M to the family. Not a parent, but my co-worker and her son were killed by her other son, almost 2 years ago now. So killer son spent all his adult life in and out of jail. Small petty crimes, breaking and entering, burglary, etc. Nothing violent. Well, his last stint was for credit card fraud. My co-worker didn't want him living with her when he got out, but he ended up staying with her and her other son. Now my co-worker was an older lady, 70s, and she was super reliable. Rarely missed work or at least called when she did. Well, she didn't show up for a shift on a Friday and it wasn't like her. We tried calling her, no cell phone. Of course she was in her 70s and it was one more useless piece of junk. No answer. So we figured, oh no. Maybe she forgot she was in the hospital and she couldn't call NBD. But something in my and my boss's chest didn't feel right, but trying not to let all the years of forensic files get the best of us, we brushed it off. Come Monday, still no call, no show. Now I'm freaking out. So we had the police go over and do a wellness check. 4 hours later we saw on the news they had found 2 bodies in her neighborhood.
What
I
are you
had given
hooked
her
up
ride
to?
home from work a million times and she didn't drive.
Did I really-
Car was gone, credit
and I
cards
really
were
do
gone.
something wrong?
They found her killer son in New York State. Picked him up on a parole violation. I still feel sick about it. She was such a nice lady, she didn't deserve that. Throw away because the investigation is still ongoing. I'm not the parent in this case, just the siblings. I have a half-sister along with one full sister and one half-brother. My relationship with my mom was strained and I didn't know my half-siblings much. I knew my half-sister had troubles talking growing up and my half-brother is autistic. My mom died recently and I got a bunch of info from
it's hooked up to something.
family members.
Is it hooked up to the crafting table?
My half-sister
Well, now there's no more
abused our
crafting
mom in
crafting
every
table.
way possible. She also threatened to kill my mom when she didn't have things going her way. A few months before
There's
my mom
nothing in here
died,
that could
my
be hooked up.
half-sister killed my mom's roommate's dog in a fit of rage after being told no for something. She didn't
There's a
get
lot
in
of
trouble
crafting
because
tables
A,
here, but I don't
dogs are
think
considered
those
property,
can be
so there
hooked
wouldn't
up.
be heavy jail time, and B,
Crafting
my maternal
tables,
grandma paid the roommates to
furnace.
not press charges and to cover the dog. I didn't ask how my half-sister killed the dog, because the fact that she could even bring harm to a pet made me sick to my stomach. There had also been several domestic abuse call-ins to the local police department because my half-sister was violently abusing my mom. They have several records of having to come out and check on things. Not long after
I don't know
the
what to
dog
do.
incident, my mom
This
died.
guy's fine.
What
See,
the
this
roommate
guy's
said,
fine.
my
Yeah, he
mom and
charges some
half-sister
more
were fighting
sometimes.
because my
This guy, I
half-sister
don't know what's
didn't want to
wrong
go
with
to
him.
school. My mom was already sick
It's
of the
been
week
like
at this
3
time.
days.
All of a sudden it got quiet in the other room
what,
and then
does he
my
need that?
half-sister started screaming
Is
for
it
help.
that?
The roommate runs in to find
Is
half-sister
that?
hunched over my mom's body. It took 4 months to get the autopsy results. They declared her death as undetermined because they couldn't be quite sure if it was the fact that my mom was already sick or something else. The police we spoke to was honest with me and we both felt like my half-sister had something to do with it. Give them literal I will kill you claims and physical abuse my half-sister put on my mom. Both my half-siblings are with CPS now and were supposed to be medically evaluated for mental illness but never were. We had 4 caseworkers in 6 months, and it took 2 months to send my half-siblings 1 letter. When we mentioned the entire situation, CPS was shocked. Apparently the latest caseworker hadn't read the file and had no idea, and is now, half a year later, trying to get a psyche evaluation on my half-sister. I'll never know for sure, but given what I know and the records I've seen, I believe my half-sister killed my mom. I am so sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through. I wish you the best. You have been visited by the chunk of good. What was the most horrific game of truth or dare you've ever played? I kissed a girl on a dare, and she literally gargled dish soap after it happened. If I wasn't gay already, that was the nail in the coffin. Gaytality. I dared a girl to make me a grilled cheese sandwich, but they had no bread. It was horrible. Mother, grill me a cheese. I got dared to answer the door and pay for the pizza we ordered completely naked. Whatever. Easy, right? The doorbell rings. I strip down quickly, and I grab the cash to pay for the pizza, but the pizza guy was not waiting at the door. It was the mom of one of the girls at the party. She had come to pick her up early, only to find me at the door naked. Her husband was a church minister. The party ended pretty quickly when she called. All the other parents were called to pick up their kids. Good times. Decided to get drunk with my wife and another married couple. Started out as categories, then escalated to truth or dare. Both me and him ended up with our asses shaved by each other's wife, and our toenails painted. Our wives both were naked all night, and ultimately, 7 minutes in heaven with each other's wife. I spent so long blaming alcohol and having to tell my wife I regretted it. I enjoyed her friend. Fist bump for honesty. Every girl has a hot, what if, friend. I was dead to snort a line of garlic powder. I'll add that to the list with Kool-Aid, Pixie Sticks, crushed up Smarties, and instant powdered energy drink. The only time I have ever played Truth or Dare was at a camping trip in Year 6, 5th grade. One night, I was invited over to the popular tent where all of the popular boys and girls
No
were playing a
fletching
game of
table
Truth or Dare.
anywhere
After
besides
about
that
10
one,
minutes
and he
of
can't
watching
be
people
hooked up
make
to
out
that
crap,
one.
the boy who invited me dared a girl, whom I had a crush on, to kiss me. She ran out of the tent, screaming. Whilst everybody laughed, I silently excused myself and cried myself to sleep. When I was in 6th grade, I was dared to let these 3 girls tie me spread eagle to the bed, clothed, and do anything they wanted for 10 minutes. I thought they would do something sexy. Instead, they spent 10 minutes dropping different objects onto my nuts, from varying heights. One girl dropped a heavy tape dispenser on me, which made me cry. This may be the worst letdown I've heard in a long while. I was right at the beginning of middle school. We were starting to play Truth or Dare at birthday parties. We were playing a variation that I think in the US is called X, Minutes in Heaven. Anyways, I think it was my turn for the heaven thing. I was so rooting for the beautiful girl I had a crush with. Instead it gets to a really weird looking girl I wasn't attracted to at all. In my head I'm really let down. This girl wasn't attractive at all. Suddenly the girl starts bawling and runs out screaming something along the lines of not with him. Yep, a similar, but not as horrible situation happened to me in 6th grade. Luckily my best friend was there to comfort me by saying, wow, what a freaking B. It was the first time I had heard someone my age use that language and I was like, yeah, she is a freaking B. 3 cups, one with water, one with toilet water, one with pee water, blindfold, pick a cup. In reality, blindfold, 3 cups of pee water.
You just can't have a fucking villager, I guess.
Truth or Dare, but one time in the 8th grade, my friend dared a friend of mine to give me a lap dance, and as it was happening, I quietly whispered in her ear, "That's what Daddy likes," and she got off and ran. You silver-tongued devil. We always did a pair of dares. I to have get sprayed by this mace that is used in correctional facilities.
I don't know. Is there really
like a fire extinguisher?
Oh no! Yeah, what?
Because I thought she had said. The day we updated Truth or Dare.
There was one here. He was hooked up to that. No.
My older brother to show his butt. He pulled down his pants, bent over, and gaped his butthole. That's how he understood bullying. I was dared to climb a friend's apartment balcony in nothing but boxers and sneakers.
What you want, please? You want some carrots? Oh, you get the carrots. Come on, man.
Friend stepped out and began to pee off of the balcony.
Hey, moquenos.
Needless to say,
Moquenos.
instincts kicked him and I dropped 2 stories down into the parking lot. My profanities were heard echoing for miles around that night. Not knowing.
Con eso que.
Frick all the sexual answers. I once dared a friend of mine to lick a jellyfish. She did. It stung. Dared to eat a mystery spoonful. To this day, I have no idea how they fit so many disgusting things in 1 teaspoon. When I was 15, the girl I was trying to date invited my friend and me over to a house where she was
tell us what was on
when we
that
arrived,
spoon.
she was there with 4 of her girlfriends, including her one extremely slutty and rumored-wielding friend. After drinking everything in the house she thought the parents wouldn't miss, we played truth or dare. Eventually, the girl I liked dared me to go have sex in the master bedroom with the S. I passed and took truth, but my friend took the dare and went off with her. They came back out about 5 minutes later, and no one believed they had done anything. 9 months after that, everybody believed them. Bullet dodged. Drunk in a pub. Dared a drunken friend to swim the canal by the pub. This is in Liverpool, UK, in the middle of winter. He stripped bollock naked, and did it. When he got out he had no discernible genitalia whatsoever. This was 20+ years ago, and I can still see his white ass sticking out of the pretty fricking rancid canal water. There was this farm party when I was around 15 years old. Everyone was told to bring different types of alcohol, they'd regret it. Guess who forgot to bring alcohol? So the person who didn't bring any alcohol had to be subject to 1 dare. No pussying out, no limits. Basically I had no choice or say in the dare. I could only agree and do it. So, in the middle of the party the host, girl who was same age as me, shouts that it's time for Brocataco to do the dare. She gets all her girlfriends together and they plan the most embarrassing, exposing, devious dare ever. You have to let us blindfold you, tie you up, and do whatever we want for 15 minutes. Forget to bring booze, SMH. 3 guys and 3 girls, we're all in the hot tub at this chick's house, and I get dared to go mash my dong balls up against her parents' bedroom window. Granted, it's like 1 AM, and the whole house is completely dark, so I thought it would be no big deal. Get out of the hot tub, run over to the window, drop my suit, and smash my junk up against the window for a few moments. Then, in the reflective light of the pool, I catch a glimpse of her parents sitting right inside the window, watching us from inside. They didn't even blink, just watched me. It was freaking terrifying. Terrifying. Like, I saw them for a split freaking second as the light passed over the glass, just inches away from my mashed up dong on the other side of the window. Something from a horror movie. I gasped and ran back to the hot tub, got back in, and just sat there in complete silence. A couple minutes later, her dad comes outside laughing, hands me a beer, and then reminisces with all of us for a minute about the crazy crap he did when he was a kid. I've never felt a shock like I did when I saw their faces. It still haunts me sometimes, but it all turned out better than expected. I was 25. Definitely not the ending I was expecting. Once I was playing with 3 girls, including me, and 3 guys. We dared 2 of the guys to eat dried hot peppers without any water. 2 turns later one of them got dared to go down on me. Worst experience of my life. Shenanigans that started with me kissing a girl down there ended with my friend and his sister kissing each other back there. We were sober. No one talks about it 15 years later. Playing in a group of girls, all around 13, 14 years old. The most kind-hearted girl there with the sweetest face, cute little curls and freckles, is dared to take a dump on a plate in front of the rest of us. No hesitation, just giggles. Okay, where's the plate? The girl whose house it was then proceeds to keep said plate in the basement freezer for a couple weeks, for science, until her mom found it. I don't know if they kept the plate. Had to go to the bathroom and show my dong to a girl. Told her I wasn't doing it flaccid so she would make out with me. Truth from me to my then girlfriend. Is there any fetish you really like but never told me? I love putting things in my ass. This was in front of 8+ people. 2 we barely knew. It was a good night. My first real party was when I was 11 or something, and I was really excited because everyone else was 16 or so. Anyway, we played Truth or Dare and it starts out fine, but escalates quickly. Someone gets a dare to motorboat some girl there. They're both fine with it, but mid-motorboat, her parents opened the door to find a room full of teens watching a kid shoving his face in their daughter's breasts. Dared to do a 7 minutes in heaven with this girl. Went into the closet. It was dark. Stuck my tongue in her ear. I'm pretty sure that was me. It's all fun and games until your best friend admits he wants to frick your mom. When I was still in high school, we played Truth or Dare at a public jacuzzi, but we were young and horny, so we played a more adult version of Truth or Dare. So 3 of my friends and 3 other girls who were all attractive. It was a win-win situation. It all started with me. One of the girls dared me take some sugar, which she strangely has in her car, and lick it off her friend's tongue, who has not shown up to the party yet. I was stoked off life. I was betting this girl was going to be super attractive. 5 minutes later, she walks in. I quickly turned to check her out with a smile. My smile quickly died. She was extremely unattractive. Her breasts were in different directions. Her face looked like a cow. She walks in and says sorry, I was smoking a cigarette. They quickly inform her on the dare, and she agrees rather quickly. I'm trying to stall time. I even called my dad to pick me up, but he didn't answer. Everything was said. She had the sugar on her tongue and was waiting. There was no getting out of it. I walk over and look out of her mouth. I see her teeth are yellow and smell like cigarettes. I went in for the deed. She then breathed the most atrocious smelling breath I have ever smelt. The smell was so horrific I threw up all over her. I quickly apologized and ran out of there. When I turned 17, me and my friends got together to drink some 40s. I liked the one girl who came and thought tonight would be the night I made a move. We decided to play Truth or Dare and I was dared to hook up with my crush, but in order to do it I'd have to touch tongues with my friend Josh. I did it and my crush is now my girlfriend. This man is the ultimate wingman. Somewhere, Neil Patrick Harris is saluting Josh. Not Truth or Dare, but a bad I never story. Playing after prom my junior year when I made the horrible choice of saying I never cheated on anyone I was dating. One guy who was there with a friend drinks and then it gets to a girl who takes a drink who had been dating a friend of ours for years. We're all agape at this point when she turns to him and says, we should probably talk. I felt like the biggest butthole ever. Oh yeah, I also saw the guy smoke another dude's pubes out of a pipe. I was 12 or 13. I was at my stepaunt's house. There were a lot of young adults around. And then my aunt. She asked Truth or Dare. I said Truth. She asked me if I wanted to sleep with her. Never drunkenly decide that all dares must be influenced by randomly dude's pubes out of a pipe. I was 12 or 13. I was at my stepaunt's house. There were a lot of young adults around. And then my aunt. She asked Truth or Dare. I said Truth. She asked me if I wanted to sleep with her. Never drunkenly decide that all dares must be influenced by randomly drawn cards against humanity, white cards.
What?
I was playing Truth or Dare with a girl I liked on my trampoline when she dared me to eat a dandelion. One of the white nasty ones. But the wind
Yes, you're finally back.
I
I don't care how much you want. You're fucking back, man.
She said nope and made me come up with a new dare. I just ate a freaking dandelion hoping I would get a kiss playing this game. I was 24 when this happened. What is this number in Truth or Dare? It wasn't Truth or Dare, but back in middle school,
I'm so happy
we were
he's
standing at the
finally
bus
back.
stop and a kid found a comb and dared
Now
another
he should
kid to eat
actually,
it, and he
you know,
just straight up ate it right there. I don't even know how he did it. He just ate it. I have always wondered how it got out. If it got out, he made $3 that day. Another kid in high school was dared to eat 3 rocks, so he just ate them right there, and he didn't even get paid. He just did it for free. He did it for himself. It was rolling in some horse crap. It was a bad day. The only time that I have ever played Truth or Dare was with a group of hyper-religious people. I was kinda indifferent, but I started playing just to placate them. The wildest question that I heard before I quit from sheer boredom was, how many times have you ever said the J word? I kid you not, and keep in mind that they are not 7 years old. They are all over the age of 18. The J word is, it is Jesus. Got dared to rub icy hot on my balls. Passed out crying in the fetal position in the hallway. Don't ever do that, LOL. In Berlin, a friend of mine had to walk through a graveyard with his pants pulled down pretending to be a dog. The funniest part was when there was a couple sitting on a bench minding their own business, when suddenly this stoned guy walks up to them, barks at them while having his pants pulled down, went to a little well right next to them, started drinking water like a dog, then went back to them, barked again, and then just sat there for 2 minutes staring at them. Eventually he wanted to run away but fell over his own pants. You have been visited by the Holy Doggo. Like this video and subscribe for a good luck. I publish new videos.
I know this is just such a waste, because like I could be making like double this right now.
What is life like for you now?
But what he's offering is enough to give me my axe. My new, brand new, stinking new axe.
Just an awful human being.
I don't think I can get any more breaking, but sharpness
And once the kid was born, the
3,
state went on
I'm
to him
pretty
for
sure,
child
is
support,
so
as he
good.
wasn't on the birth certificate, even though they were living together. Anyways, the paternity test came back showing it wasn't his, and she flipped her lid. Just lost it. He asked her to calm down and said he wanted to take a walk to cool off. He left everything he owned, minus the clothes on his back and his wallet, and went for a walk that he never came from. A few years back the kid found him. He was 16 or 17, and went on some giant rant about him being a bum and a punk ass and whatever other nonsense. My cousin told him he wasn't his dad. The paternity test showed that, and he had no idea why she told him he was the father and abandoned them. He left a whole hell of a lot more confused than he showed up, I think. I was living with my parents. I was 17. They told me to leave, then tried to stop me from leaving. I have been in an abusive relationship with my mom and my stepdad for years. Friends helped me load the car. That was 12 years ago. Never been back. I have never left, but my brother has. One morning, 2 years ago, I woke up with a killer hangover, rolled over in bed, checked my phone and saw several missed calls and a couple of voicemails from my mother and sister, along with a text message from my dad. Call me. The first voicemail was from my sister, sobbing through the phone. She said, for the sake of the story, let's call my brother Tom. Tom just tried to commit suicide. He wrote us a letter and just call me please. Whoa, this can't be real. Then my mom's voicemail. Tom attempted suicide last night. We haven't been able to reach him, but we suspect he might be heading your way. If you see him, call the police. We need to make sure he is safe. Oh crap, this is definitely real. We all somewhat suspected depression from him, but this was unexpected. Anyways, I got out of bed and put some clothes on. I opened the blinds and I peek out the window, as if on cue. Tom's shitty old 96 four-door. He was flustered, barely spoke to me but told me he was leaving for California, refusing to turn him into the police. I bought him lunch, filled up his gas tank, and then I gave him all of the $26 I had on me and wished him the best of luck. He was back home within 2 weeks, remorseful and embarrassed. I'm glad he's back. Hey, you tell your brother, sometimes we all want to drive a rusty old post to California and leave it all behind. Mom cornered me in the bathroom after chasing me around the house. Told me to punch her when I tried to leave. Punched me instead. I said I'd call the cops. She said she'd do the same as she's done with my ex-stepdad. Tell him I punched her and it'd be her word versus mine. Next morning, got into a broken Ford that was still on her name even though it was mine. Went to get the oil changed. Told the guy how long he thinks the car could make it. He said I'd be lucky to make it a block. Wouldn't go into reverse, among other things. All the same, I thought, I'm only going forward. 3 days later I drove from CA to MD and spent about 5 years without contact. Reconnected. Foolishly thinking people change. People don't change.
A breaking
Last I
one,
heard from her,
flame
she
one,
wanted me to
infinity
sign
one. Wait,
over
are
my
we gonna
apartment
lose
in
anything?
Russia so she could sell it
Power
and give me the
3.
money. I told her I'd happily sign it over, but she didn't need to pretend she'd give me a dime.
Okay, so power
Like
3
one of
is
the
good,
top commenters
infinity is
here,
good, and
I've
flame is
also
good,
been
and
working
breaking
since the
I
age
can
of
get more.
12, albeit for much less than
And
A/R when I
then we're
started.
going
Paper
to
route,
go
etc.
freaking get
Only
more
reconnected
netherite.
because I have sisters.
I don't even know why. We already have
Great
3
pushing
pieces.
she's
I could
done against me
probably
is
upgrade
none.
whatever I
Both
need,
sisters
but...
suicidal. One is pregnant
Actually,
at the age of 18.
should I just go to the end?
Failing
Like,
grades.
look at us.
Neither will take me up on
I
my
should probably
offers
get
to
more.
help.
I should actually
make
get this
50
like
miles
higher
hour
up, but
tutoring
still at the same time, look at my
Sorry,
gear.
I'm on
We
the
could
run
go
who
to
left
the
and
nether,
traveled the world.
like right
But I'm
now,
a loser
like
because,
right
well,
now. Like I
frick
just
this
have
thread.
it's just a few
Frick
clicks.
your mom. You're not a loser. Frick your mom. I just hope your
Okay,
sisters will be
well,
okay.
first I actually want to get a mending book, so I need to send this. I need to sell this. I'm gonna buy some of this. Oh no, wait, why did I do that? I needed to buy mending books. Why did I buy?
Drove for 12 hours and showed
No,
up at a friend's
forget.
house 5 states away and asked if I could crash on his couch. I called my boss and said I wanted to quit work. He was pretty cool about it. He knew my girlfriend and actually set me up with a job in my new city. I have never spoken to my ex since. Soon after my relocation I met my now wife and I could not be in a better relationship. Best thing I ever did.
I wish that they couldn't eat after that full wall. Like, bruh, I'm already giving you a life of pure safety instead of like wolves chasing you down. And you have the nerve to fucking eat the grass that I have given you. Feather falling 4. Can you get feather falling 5? Okay, I need level 30. Well, time for breeding. I'm not breeding the sheep. I should actually kill some of the sheep now that I think about it. Oh, let's do the cows, because the cows, they don't eat the grass, so I don't have to replenish that. They actually don't do anything besides just give me really good food. Cows are kind of overpowered, and Mojang, do not, if you're listening to this, do not fucking change cows. They're simple, and that's why I like them. If they were complicated, like, oh, I would have never gotten them. I could have just got villagers to just give me all my books. So don't change them. I'm just saying, you did a very good job making them not like sheep. Like, oh, the cows in real life, yes, they do eat grass. If you look it up, they eat grass and stuff. So technically it's not accurate, but I'm happy it's not. Okay, so is there really no other people? Oh, hey, we're...
Heard similar from her before and didn't want to go to Dad's again, so I called some family and they all refused to take me in because my mom had called and told them I hit her. Since I was still in the same house, I told her she was a horrible person, an even worse mother, and left. Grandma knew parents were crazy, so she helped me as much as she could. Still get phone calls, emails, Facebook messages asking me when I'm going to stop being a bee so we can be a family again. Have seen both since. Invited some friends through Facebook to things that they in turn invited my parents to. Finally nutted up and told them both to get the frick out of my life. Mum still leaves me drunk high crying voicemails in the middle of the night, either telling me she loves me or that I'm all that's wrong with her life. Dad sends me emails telling me to get the stick out of my ass because I'm still his son. Still spend time with my grandma. Friends' parents mean more to me than my own ever did. Now I've got a full-time job, an awesome dog, working on doing better in life
maybe
in
we should
general,
just make some
and
potions.
trying to move into a place
So, time to go get more ender pearl, time to go get more blaze powder. I know I already have a lot and a little extra, but I want to make sure I do this right this time. Is there anything I need? I need more breaking books, so is there any breaking? Feather falling, efficiency. Feather falling, no. That's wrong. I want to just, I want to test it, wait. Oh, I could just search it.
Depression in my life. On the other hand, is absence, the lack of dad.
What's the highest level feather falling on boots can go on Minecraft?
Level 4. According to Dig Minecraft, the maximum
level 4.
So
no, that would have been a huge wasted time.
The strangest part is when I turned the age he was when he killed himself. I'm 36, and I'm older than my dad ever was, and I still feel young, like I have many years ahead of me. I wish I had had the opportunity to know him. Everything I know about him is someone else's memory. Thanks for giving me space to share this. I left my home like this. One night, I just packed the
Okay, it
essentials
takes
into my
9
backpack,
beds to
walked
destroy
to
the
a train
nether
station
dragon.
and got
Oh
on a
wait,
train to
shield.
Newport News.
See,
VA from
the one time
Pasco,
you tried to use a
WA.
shield, it
No one
almost
knew I was
instantly
gone
broke.
until 3 o'clock the next
I
morning.
don't ask
It
me
was to be
how.
with a
I
girl
have
my
no
family was
fucking
totally
clue how that happened.
100% against.
But that
was
just
a year ago.
means,
It's
do
all
I even
working
have any iron?
perfectly.
It's fine if I
I'm
don't. I
happier
can
now
probably
than
beat
I
him
ever
without
have
it,
been
but
before.
be better if
I'm
I
from
did have it.
Newport
Actually,
News.
I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna go
Cool things worked out.
try to
I
get
don't know if this
the
counts,
things that
but
I
when I
need.
was about
Okay.
19, I was in a
Well, now I don't need
terrible
anything
position.
else on this
All
boat.
of
This
my
boat
friends
is
were doing MH
perfect.
regularly. I had put out thousands of dollars to bail friends from jail and to try to help them out. The girl I was dating was lying to everyone she knew about our relationship. My
We need
uncle called
diamonds.
me in the middle of all this and offered me a job on the other side of the country. I had my car packed and was headed there within 12 hours. I heard from the girl I was dating about 2 weeks later. She called crying, telling me she went to my house and I wasn't there and wanted to know where I was. I told her I had moved and she told me it wasn't my choice to make, that I should have consulted her. I never heard from any of the people I had considered friends. I heard some of them went to jail, some had kids, some disappeared. I moved back to the town I left about 5 years later and everything has been relatively okay since then. Sometimes I see people I used to know, and sometimes they recognize me. But mostly I keep to myself and spend time with better people than those I left years ago. Throw away for good reason. I've always lived in an
walked
abusive
a
home,
lonely
both mentally and
road.
physically,
I
and
don't
never saw
know
a
the
proper
rest
way
of
out.
this
I
song.
started working at 14 years
Okay,
old in a
we need
convenience
phantom
store for
membranes,
$8 an
slow
hour and hid all
falling.
of the money I made in a
I
locked
actually can
container
deal
in
with
a
that
nearby
slow
wooded
falling. I
park
have
area.
beds.
I did this because my parents would have taken my money if they knew I was.
Should I get another shovel?
I had close to 10,000 saved up and had
Probably
finished
not.
high school.
Now I think about
I
it.
was supposed to
I really
start
don't need
university
it.
that year, but early on in the
Alright,
summer
so
I waited until my parents
alright,
went
we only
out to
need
work,
9 beds.
found
I
and
remember
took all of
9
my
beds. So
documents.
let's put away
I
the
got
rest.
out of the
So
university program I was supposed to be in and left.
4,
I took a bus to
5,
Alberta
6,
and I've been living here
7,
since doing
8,
labor. It's been a
9.
year and a half and they
Boop,
haven't
bop,
searched from me yet.
I might as well
Not
just
that
keep
I'm
an
aware of, at
extra
least.
one just in
How is my
case.
life now? I'm poor.
I
Barely
already
getting
have
by, but
arrows.
at least I am living alone and happier than I was before.
And now we need extra
Left my
gear.
family
So
close to
a
5
sharpness
years ago
2.
to move to California to start a new life. I was 400 pounds, living a lifestyle of prescription drugs and drinking at 17 with my family.
We're gonna start going. I actually don't need potions. I believe in myself, which is probably not the best choice, but we're gonna do it. So yeah, we don't need a boat like at all. We need a water bucket for MLG water bottle, water bottles, water catches. I don't know what the
I
fuck they're
live on
called.
my own now and manage
MLG
an
water
office selling
bucket.
printer parts and various other money makers online. I started my own
Let's get some more
business last
steak.
year
I
and
feel like
I've been
steak
paying out of pocket
is
to
gonna be the
continue school here
MVP of
because the
this
college
fight.
I went to back home wouldn't release my transcript. I've lost a great deal of weight and am away from any unhealthy addictions.
What's
My
this?
family is for the most
I'm
part very
breaking
cross with
3.
me. My
It's
mother
boots.
died 2 years
Boots
ago
or
nearly
boots?
exactly. I had planned to go
Okay,
back for
there,
her
we have a
birthday
backup
tomorrow,
set of gear.
incidentally, in 2013, but she died 2 weeks prior to it. The only regret I have is leaving that door
bottles.
open.
So we need the
I
dragon
like to
breath
think she'd be
infusion.
proud of where I went. Oh man, just remember you did what you had to do. I know my username doesn't reflect it, but I'm a mom of 2 boys. Every time they do something that reflects their independence and their place in this world as a man, it's the only goddamn thing in the world that could make me happy, proud, and my whole life worth living. She understood what you did, my friend. There is no way she couldn't have. My mother left me at her door.
So wood is
I would visit
also a
every
necessity.
Saturday for a few hours.
Not a lot
Then she
though.
wasn't there. After 10 plus
17
years
more,
of extreme
I think
hate towards
a
her,
little
my
bit
uncle
more would be good.
enlightened me. He said maybe
Alright,
she
that's
left
almost
you
a
for the
stack of
better.
planks.
Turns out she has
So
extreme
like if
mental
we need a
issues.
crafting table,
Drug
a chest or
abuse.
something.
It's amazing how few words
Yeah.
can change your life. I was 21, on my 3rd year of college, getting drunk and high on pills every single night, puking every single morning.
A couple extra picks, obviously.
Had just had an abortion, 98 pounds and barely scraping by in my classes. One day I woke up and felt so unbelievably sick, tired of the way I was living, I considered ending my life. Instead of killing myself, I packed up as much as I could fit in my car while my housemates were in class work and moved to North Carolina to live by the beach. I called my parents and told them what I was doing. which broke their hearts, which broke my heart. I still come home for some holidays. I stayed in a cheap, disgusting motel for 2 months before I saved enough at my waitress job to get an apartment 40 minutes from the beach. I'm currently married to a wonderful man, completely sober, finished my degree and have a baby due in December. I can truly say I'm happy. American that moved to Australia for 2 years. Got a girl pregnant, fell in love, saw her for the horrible person that she really was, but stuck it out. After the baby was born, I had to be sure he was mine. The test came back showing no paternal match. I confronted her. We fought. She swore up and down it was a bad test. Wanting to believe it, I scheduled another test for the 3 of us to go in. $800 later, 2 days before the test, she played dumb and said she never agreed to that. Told me to get out of their life, and that her child was not a science experiment. I stayed with a friend a couple days and came back. She acted like nothing happened, and wanted to just move on. Another test was no longer an option in her book. It was the hardest decision of my entire life, and it still makes me sick to think about. A week later I scheduled a flight back to California. I've been back for 4 years
I don't know
now.
why
We
I
had
keep
talked a
singing
bit
that
over the year after I left, but just went back to her wanting to fight. After some antidepressants and heavy drinking, I'm finally starting to feel whole again. I look at the world very differently now. You should read your comments in 1 year and see how far you moved along. Good luck, bro. Left home shortly before high school graduation, awful living situation. My parent was in town and told me to go home while she stayed in town. I went home and packed my stuff and left. Returned the car with a note and no one even bothered to call text me for a week. Hello Friendo, you have been visited by the Cozy Puppers on Lazy Sundays. Upvote now or you may never have a good relax ever again. If you... What was the most horrific game of truth or dare you've ever played? I kissed a girl on a dare, and she literally gargled dish soap after it happened.
Hard to go this way.
Already, that was the nail in the coffin. Gatality.
I have netherite.
I dared a girl to make me a grilled cheese sandwich, but
it does 9 damage. It's not the best. I'm kind of sad I never got a sword. But...
Water tastes like, well, water. So we fixed it.
Wait.
Meal.
24?
Counselors, nurses offered it. What is the most embarrassing or WTF reason a kid has ended up in your office? When I was in 2nd grade, a boy held a pencil point up on my chair, and I sat on it. It traveled through my jeans and underwear without any damage, and stuck firmly in my little butt cheek. On this day, we happened to have a substitute teacher, and when I started crying, she took me into the in-classroom restroom and looked at my butt, informed me that the tip of the pencil was stuck in there, and I took off running and crying down the hall. I turned a corner and the janitor, Ralph, called out, "Do you have a pass?" To which I replied, "There's a pencil stuck in my butt." Then I continued down the hall to the nurse's office. The school nurse, Sherry, was a very sweet lady. She calmed me down, called my mom to ask for permission to touch my butt, and plucked it out. I got to go home for the day. I consider it a win. I laughed so hard during the hallway janitor moment that actual tears were shed. A boy in my 7th grade class snorted a line of sugar he poured from a pixie stick. He promptly got a severe nosebleed that would not stop and he had to go to the nurse's office and he was there until his mum could pick him up and take him home. For some reason, a fair number of girls started doing this in the bathroom during junior high. They'd all go in there during lunch and just snort pixie sticks. Middle school counselor here.
What the frick?
WTF, but a 7th grader came to see me in tears.
Where is this? Is it like... Oh, I really hope it's not like 1,000 blocks away.
I realized that she had given a handy and thought she could get pregnant from getting semen on her hands. We have a student, 1st grade, who poops his pants on purpose when he wants to go home, about once a week. My sister used to wet herself to get taken home. It took a few times for my mom to figure it out. One day, she pees herself. Mom comes up there with a change of clothes, changed her in the bathroom and sent her right back to class.
What?
She never did it again. I put my hand through a window in high school trying to kill a bug on the window. When I got to the nurse, she was like, "Sweet, nothing like this ever happens." In 3rd grade, a boy punched through a window because he left his watch at the French fry factory during a field trip. I bet that was a fun one to explain. We had about 5 kids, 5th graders, come in one day after lunch because one of the other kids bought a habanero pepper and convinced them all to try it. You'd think they would learn after the first one did it. No. Even adults are that level of stupid. My buddy is in his late 50s. His wife packed his lunch for work and included some god-awful sparkling water. Buddy takes a big gulp and exclaims this is disgusting. His buddy, mid-40s, then demanded to taste it. Within 10 minutes, all 8 grown adults in the room had tried it. When I was in grade 9, we were reenacting battles from wars with marshmallow ammunition in the schoolyard, and somebody whipped a marshmallow right into my open eye. This sounds like the wimpiest injury ever, and it really was, but it hurt and I couldn't open my eye or see. I had to go to the nurse and explain that the black eye I was getting was from a marshmallow, and she had to do like an eye rinse to get out all the powdery sugar. She even called my mom and they just laughed at me. My mom is a school nurse. One day, after the school day,
where the frick
she was
is
about
it?
to leave when someone came to get her about an
Is it in the ocean? Please say it's in the ocean and not somewhere really fucking stupid.
The door was locked.
If it's like in the middle of a forest, I'm gonna be pissed because then I'll have to get my eye back from the tree. And after that, I would have to frickin' go all the way down to the... Come on, I'm running out of supplies here, man.
My son's middle school had a really skittish nurse. I am not sure what her qualifications were, but she called for an ambulance about twice a week. My son is asthmatic and had a complicated regimen back then.
What?
This woman just couldn't handle it for some reason. So we had to have my son take his meds right before and right after school. And he had to smuggle...
Where's my eye?
But he never got
this again. Oh.
until the end of his 2nd year there. One day, he hit his head in shop class.
What
Not
time
bad,
is it?
but they sent him to the nurse. She calls me at work and says I had to pick him up. I told her to call my wife, who worked from home and was 5 minutes away. She couldn't process that and said no, I had to pick him up. I said that was silly. I was at least an hour away, and why my wife was primary contact. She said she didn't answer the phone. I sent an IM to my wife, and she said she hadn't gotten a call. So she called the school. The nurse insists that if I am anything of a responsible father, I was to be there in 10 minutes or she's sending my son to the hospital. WTF. I am an hour away. My wife can be there in 5 minutes. So my wife gets through, and the nurse speaks to her. I forgot what led to this, but my wife ends up in a fight with the nurse who refuses to tell her about why her son was being sent to a hospital.
I'm so pissed, man. We're so far away.
The nurse considers this a threat to her life and calls the cops. So my wife is met at the school nurse office by the police and EMTs because the nurse called an ambulance. During this, an EMT calls me because the nurse is dealing with my wife and the cops. He says my son is fine.
I'm actually getting pissed off.
Freaked out because some woman claiming to be my ex-wife or something is being accused of threatening bodily harm to the nurse. In the end, no one was arrested, and my wife sent my son back to class. My wife said the nurse
I'm getting pissed off. If
the cops pretty much took my
weird.
wife's side right away.
It's not. It can't be this far, right? Like we're literally like more than like almost 2,000 blocks away. If I die and my bed gets destructed somehow in some fucking way, I'm not gonna make it back. I might as well just quit the world if that fucking happens. Even if I can get all my gear back, all of the same enchantments, which I don't think I could, then I would have to get more diamonds for the chest plate, because the chest plate was my one and only chance to get it, because I was super lucky and I found more. So if I die, or if I don't get enough eyes, I cannot go back unless I literally... This is why I need it. This is why the elytra should be available, like early game. I'm right now going so far. Okay, let's check. What? Okay, so now we're gonna go back. Okay.
He was wrong. Never considered how I'd get them out. One winter in junior high, my classmates engaged in running across a frozen pond for kicks and giggles. One of them decided he would run across barefoot and suck me for him. the ice decided to break under his bare
Oh, it's down.
soles. Needless to say, there were cuts and blood all over. And since our school's
Is it even possible like to like go into the portal room, right, and land into like the lava pool in the middle of the portal? Like, I know it has to be possible. Like, you mine down in the wrong direction. Oh, we're back.
Except I didn't bust my head open.
Well, not we're back because I've never been here before, but still, I've seen this place only once before this. I don't have any fucking torches. Goddamn.
The shop exhaust tube was turned upside down one day.
Yeah, we're gonna mark each place we search, so we know not to go there again.
Perplexed when they had a room full of sick and loopy students. They accused us of all getting high, and we were all sent back to the art room until even the teacher presented with the same symptoms. I think all we did was sit outside for a bit. Then we all continued on with our day
where the frick is this thing? Okay, that's all marked.
Members of society. It's an attempted power grab, I tell you. I'll throw myself in here. Not a nurse, but the embarrassing kid. I grew up with a dairy allergy, not lactose intolerance, like an actual allergy where I was told that my throat would close and I'd swell up, or it did a couple times when I was much younger. Was pretty vigilant about not eating dairy, so I don't have an actual memory of the reaction. Well, second day of my freshman year.
Oh, I never grabbed that steak as well. Oh wait, I can just grab this later. Let's just try. Okay, so we've checked here.
And went to the office and told them. They called an ambulance and my parents rushed there. And it turns out I've definitely grown out of the allergy. 10 years later, and my friends still harass me about the time I got scared by a sandwich and called an ambulance. Still embarrassed about it every time. If you weren't wrong though, they'd still be talking about that guy in high school who got killed by a sandwich. A guy in one of my HS Chem classes tried sneaking some sodium, if I remember right, out of the classroom. He unfortunately decided he would hide it in a paper towel in his crotch. He eventually sweated enough to activate it and ended up burning his crotch pretty badly. School had to call an ambulance. Not entirely the same thing, but in my freshman in Chem lab, someone managed to stick a glass funnel all the way through their hand. He had been trying to fit a hose around it and accidentally stabbed himself with it. It didn't help that his was somewhat chipped at the end, making it sharper. They ended up having to call an ambulance. It was rather gory. Lab was cancelled though. I guess one man's misery is another man's fortune. Carol didn't wear her safety goggles. Now she has a hole through her hand. In my high school gym lab, we had about 10 students, one of which got his finger stuck in a wooden test tube rack. He hid that hand behind his back for a good amount of time before our lab teacher noticed and asked why he was doing so. He ended up having to have the geography teacher in the classroom next door saw it off. Not a counselor, but one time a group of boys streaked at a homecoming game. At the time,
this entire place is marked as not the portal. It's not possible that the portal is just not there, right? Like, it just didn't spawn, right? Why are you stupid for saying that?
I reached for my non-existent
Where is it? Why doesn't it point to the portal? You should point to the portal, not the portal, like the actual spot. It was here. Okay.
Well, when I was in year 9.
Oh frick! Yes, this is so good. It's actually perfect for what I need.
In front of the teachers and all of us, leaving us wondering WTF he was doing. Well, I was a student. One time I had hickeys and the nurse police thought I was getting abused. Called my parents and everything.
Okay, so we set our spawn point, just making sure. We have enough wood for
What really happened is that I got a cut stuck on my mouth by sucking all the air out of it the night before while I was taking a bath. I had a friend who cut himself pretty neat with scissors. He proceeded to try to see how many pieces of .7 lead he could stick into his body. He got about halfway through one piece when it broke inside him and he had excruciating pain which he described as a burning and stinging. We were only in middle school, and he went to the school nurse who tried to squeeze it out of him and then just assumed it had entered the bloodstream and left him alone. My ex got his tongue stuck in his zipper and the nurse had to help him unzip. Cringe. We did a
Okay.
starfish dissection in 7th grade, and this
We
guy, my class
have
8
put all
starfish for $10.
our hope
I never asked
into
him
not
how it
fucking
tasted.
messing this
We
up.
dissected a deer
We
heart
have
in 10th grade. A
blocks
kid took a
on
huge
blocks.
bite out of one for $17. He got suspended. The
We're
video went crazy around school.
We
and
never
they
got
tried
those
to get
bottles
people
either.
in trouble for having it.
Let's go.
One
I have a
time in
memory
6th
problem,
grade, I was
guys.
playing with scissors in my art class and cut my bottom lip. I put my hand to my lip instantly out of fear, and it was covered
What?
with blood.
Why can't I hear the
walked
dragon
up to
so
the
close?
teacher, who was in the process
What?
of scolding some kid
What
for
is this?
doing something stupid with the art supplies. And when he turned to me, he was so frustrated, he said, "You better be bleeding." I showed him my lip. He just shook his head and said, "Go to the nurse." I still have a little U-shaped scar on the bottom of my bottom lip from that incident. We dissected a pig in biology in high school, and a guy stuck his scalpel up its throat and was walking around the classroom quoting
What
lines
the
from
actual
Lord
fuck
of the
is wrong with
Flies.
you, dragon?
Needless to say, he got suspended for it. In 2nd grade, I went to the nurse's office with a good-sized hole in my head. I
Trying to
fell
kill
while running
me?
to the bathroom and slammed my head into the corner of a
Really?
filing cabinet.
Trying to kill me?
The nurse had no idea what to do, so she put dry gauze on the hole. Later, it became very apparent that that was a bad idea. I have run involving both counselors and nurses. I have very well-documented allergies to things like peanut and pet dander and dust mites and fabric softener and anything that flowers. So, basically, I am always having some kind of allergic reaction. My school had a zero-tolerance policy, so I had to go to the nurse and ask politely for my allergy medication on the relatively frequent occasions I would break out in painful hives. After realizing I was doing this, the school counselor started trying to get out of class. What was really bothering me, and if I had found some clever new way to get high, the phrase, "No, really, look at these nasty hives all over."
What is this?
He eventually called my allergist to ask him hypothetically if it was possible for me to have reactions as frequently, then called my parents and suggested they consider taking me to a psychologist, because my immune system is just crap.
Oh god, this is not gonna work.
Which inevitably also meant seeing the counselor for misbehaving in grade 7. My crime. I didn't stand up. I was in a wheelchair. The counselor thought I was lying when I got to his office when I told him what happened, so kept me on detention. I got home, told my mum. She lawyered up and had him write a letter that scared the crap out of the principal so much I never saw that teacher or the counselor ever again. I'm not sure if kids just pound the common sense out of these people or they are just morons. WTF. In my freshman biology in high school, there were 2 kids who were throwing sharp dissecting objects at the ceiling, while the teacher was out of the classroom to get them lodged in the ceiling, like people do with pencils sometimes. During our frog dissections, and one of the kids accidentally stabbed the other one with a scalpel in his shoulder. The kid who got stabbed got pee and punched the other kid, and the both ended up going to the nurse. I thought it was pretty WTF.
Really fricked us. Like really bad. Stop shooting fireballs, you dumbass bitch. I don't have any any fucking. Come on. I need to eat more food. What am I doing? I'm literally. Freaking go. Freaking bitch. Fuck off. Go eat a dick. Go.
Not a nurse. One day I
Don't you
decided
dare
that my bully had enough fun with
come
me,
near me
so I
again.
dumped crazy glue into his hands and told him it will make your hair clean. Once he put his hands into his hair, Insta-stick. He spent 3-4 hours with the nurse cutting his hair. He didn't come back to school for 3 weeks. When I was in 1st grade, my parents
hit it!
some ridiculous costume
No!
and I decided
Fucking shit, man!
comparable to what you'd get from
What the actual fuck was that?
one day.
I need actual blood. Not getting fucked over. And over. And over and over and over. Go. Come on. Let's go.
I finally realized that this might have been a foolish thing to do. I had been down on the rim so
What the
much that I
fuck?
couldn't get the ring off.
What actually is happening?
That seemed really mean. So I was afraid
What the actual fuck is happening to me?
I kept biting down on it,
Why is this
hoping that I
lag?
could somehow bend it back to its original state and I'd be able to get it off. Wrong. I
Where
ended up
am
biting
I?
down on it so much that it crimped down on my
Guys,
finger.
where the
I
fuck
still
am
didn't
I?
want to say anything to
What
the teacher
happened?
for worry of getting in trouble. So
I'm
I
actually
just
getting pissed
get
off. If I
messages,
lose
making it
my
worse.
full fucking
After about
netherite gear
15
that I
minutes of
spent
developing a cold,
literally hours
purple,
on, I'm
dying
done.
fear,
I'm done
I
with this
finally
game.
freaked
I'm
my
actually
head
getting
out and
pissed
put
off.
it to 10.
There's no point. I should have died.
Surprisingly nice about my
Why?
little problem and sent me to the
Why?
nurse.
Can you
The school nurse stuck
emoji?
my hand in
Get
ice
rid of the
water,
fucking
and then
dragon's
tried to
ability to
yank
shoot
it off.
fireballs. It's
It didn't
fucking
work.
a
The tight
dick
in the
move
ice water
where
prevented
I'm
me from
working
losing
hard
my
for
finger
all of my stuff
forever,
and I get
after
fucking
half an hour,
killed
she
by
caught
a
my
fireball
arm. My
that
mom
literally
did
did
not want
nothing
to
to
threaten
me.
a crisis
But
and
no,
found out as
the
much as
fireball does
6-year-old
$1 trillion
She
damage.
called my dad while he was at work.
I'm Mojang.
He
What
drove
did
me
you
there, and he
do?
cut the ring off with some bolt cutters or nipping pliers in about 3 seconds. I cried because I felt so
I
dumb.
can't get my
And
iron
he felt
pick.
bad that I felt bad. So he bought me an ice cream cone from Thrifty's and got to skip out of school for the rest of the day. TM.
I'm actually getting pissed off. Where is this dragon?
Finger off like a puppy dog's tail while in school. Dad saved the day and I got cookies and cream and a day off as a reward for being an idiot. In middle school.
Should I just close my application? I'm closing my application, guys. I'm sorry, bye.
It was oregano. I swear.